Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Became the Successor to All for One? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Chapter 1. Chapter 1 Midoriya Izuku Without a Quirk. It all started in China, with news about a glowing baby born in Qingqing City. After that, various superpowers were discovered everywhere. More and more people had these extraordinary abilities, leading to chaos. What was once fiction became reality. Generations later, almost everyone now has superpowers, which are no longer rare and are called quirks. In this era of superhuman society, chaos, destruction, and crime are everywhere. But there are also people who fight for justice. Thus, an imaginary profession from the old days has taken the stage. Heroes. These are people who fight enemies and maintain peace. It's a great and respected title, and in this era, it has become a job everyone dreams of. Now, let's hear from the number 1 symbol of peace, All Might. In Japan, news broadcasts on the streets often feature All Might, the famous professional hero. Since he appeared, Japan's crime rate has dropped sharply. Now, everyone in Japan, young and old, admires this hero. Many people have chosen to become heroes because of him. On the street, through a TV cabinet, a green-haired kid with starry eyes is holding an All Might figurine. He looks like a child who idolizes the symbol of peace, All Might, and like many kids, he dreams of becoming a hero. But then, the green-haired kid remembers something and walks away sadly, not even interested in All Might's news anymore. The green-haired kid's name is Midoriya Izuku. Like most kids, he idolizes All Might and dreams of becoming a hero. But becoming a hero isn't just about saying it. He's 5 years old, and when he went for a quirk assessment, the doctor gave him some harsh news. He doesn't have a quirk. In this hero society, where quirks are everywhere, not having a quirk is as rare as a giant panda. It cruelly shattered his dream of becoming a hero. All Might. All Might. Midoriya Izuku muttered the name of his idol hero as he walked home. He passed by a park where other kids often played. Hee, just stay down and let me beat you. Midoriya Izuku heard a familiar voice and turned to look. It was someone he knew, Bakugo Katsuki, standing in front of a kid who had fallen to the ground, with explosions crackling in his hands. Bakugo is so amazing. He'll definitely become a hero in the future. 2 other kids were following Bakugo, praising him skillfully. It was clear they were used to it. Is that Kaken? Midoriya Izuku was hiding behind a telephone pole, feeling a bit scared. He and Bakugo Katsuki used to be friends, but ever since their quirks awakened, things changed. Bakugo had a powerful explosion quirk, while Midoriya had no quirk at all. Their relationship slowly drifted apart. Is he bullying someone again? Seeing what was happening, Midoriya knew exactly what Bakugo was up to. Bakugo was the boss of the kids in the area, and his strong quirk made him unbeatable. No one dared to go against him, or they would get beaten up. I won. I should be the hero. A little girl who had fallen to the ground was crying. She had been playing with Bakugo and the others, and during their hero game, they decided who would play the hero and who would play the villain by playing rock, paper, scissors. The little girl won and was supposed to be the hero, while Bakugo, who lost, was supposed to be the villain. But kids often argue and accuse each other. Bakugo didn't want to be the villain, so he knocked the little girl down and started saying hero lines. The little girl, who was called the villain, was beaten up by Bakugo. She was in pain and angry, crying and shouting back, "No way, you're not a hero like this. You demon villain." Bakugo, feeling insulted, got even angrier. He used his explosion quirk and aimed at the little girl. Seeing Bakugo's move, the little girl curled up on the ground in fear, closing her eyes tightly. But after a while, she didn't feel any pain. The little girl opened her eyes timidly and saw that someone had blocked Bakugo's attack. You! Bakugo was surprised and angry to see his attack blocked. The person standing in front of him was none other than Midoriya Izuku, whom he always called Deku. Deku, do you want to get beaten up too? Bakugo's face twisted with anger. How dare this quirkless Deku stand in his way? I don't know. My legs just moved on their own. Tears streamed down Midoriya's face. He had a family trait of crying when he got emotional. Bakugo's attack hurt a lot, but Midoriya was even more scared. He had been beaten up by Bakugo many times before. Now, standing up to him, he knew he was in for another beating. Move aside now, and I'll let you off. Bakugo shouted angrily. To him, Deku wasn't worth his time. He wanted Deku to get lost quickly. Midoriya's legs were shaking, his heart was pounding, and he was terrified. But he still stood in front of Bakugo. No. I won't let you bully others. Demon Deku. Midoriya's words made Bakugo even angrier. He punched Midoriya to the ground and started kicking and hitting him. The other little boy was ignored. Bakugo just wanted to teach Midoriya a lesson. After a while, Bakugo got tired of hitting him. He called his two sidekicks and swaggered away, leaving Midoriya Izuku lying on the ground, covered in bruises. Midoriya, are you okay? A little girl who was also a neighbor came over to Midoriya with concern. She knew Midoriya Izuku and also knew that he was quirkless. I'm fine, it just hurts a bit. Midoriya smiled to comfort the little girl, but his own tears kept falling, making his words unconvincing. Bakugo is such a JRK, he's not a hero at all. The little girl clenched her fists and shouted from the bottom of his heart. Midoriya, you are my hero. Me? A hero? The little girl's gratitude was like a needle piercing Midoriya's heart. Could someone like him, who was quirkless, really become a hero? The sun was setting. After saying goodbye to the little boy, Midoriya slowly walked back home. When he got home, his mother, Midoriya Inko, was shocked to see him. Midoriya came home with torn clothes and covered in bruises. She immediately asked what had happened. It wasn't a big deal, so Midoriya Izuku told his mother everything. After hearing her child's words, Midoriya Inko hugged him tightly. I'm sorry, Izuku, I'm sorry. Midoriya Inko understood her child's dream of becoming a hero very well. When Midoriya Izuku was confirmed to be quirkless, she blamed herself for everything. If it weren't for her, Izuku wouldn't be like this. No, Ma. Someone said that I am a hero. In his mother's arms, Midoriya Izuku said this, no longer feeling lost. The quirk didn't matter anymore. He remembered what he had forgotten. Because All Might once said, being a hero is not just about having a quirk, it's more about having a hero's heart. One comment. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 Midoriya's efforts started from a young age. Yes, I admire All Might and want to become a hero. At the age of 5, Midoriya Izuku understood his dream. He wanted to be someone who brings smiles to others and helps people. So, even without a quirk, Midoriya Izuku still wanted to become a hero. A quirk is just a special ability that some people have. Since he didn't have a quirk, he would find a suitable way to make up for it. Midoriya Izuku thought about it and began his journey to become a hero. At just 5 years old, little Midoriya started taking action. He carefully recorded all the heroes' fighting styles and analyzed which hero would be best suited for someone without a quirk. Following his mom Midoriya Inko's advice, he studied hard at school and spent his free time running to the library to gain more knowledge. His mom told him that if he wanted to become a hero without relying on a quirk, he needed to know more than others. In his spare time, he also trained his body because All Might once said, a hero needs to have a strong body. Whenever he saw a professional hero on the street, little Midoriya would shamelessly go up to them and ask about their fighting methods and experiences with enemies. He recorded all this detailed information, believing it would help him. Time flew by, and now 12-year-old Midoriya Izuku was in middle school. He attended Orozuru Middle School, not a famous school, but it was close to Midoriya's home and another person's home as well. Midoriya Izuku came from an ordinary family and attended Orozuru Middle School, where he happened to be in the same class as someone else. What did you say? In the classroom, Bakugo Katsuki stood on a desk, looking angry and yelling at a classmate just because he didn't like what the person said. Seeing Bakugo's fierce look, Midoriya Izuku felt a headache. He was in the same class as Bakugo again. Speaking of Bakugo Katsuki, it's impossible for Midoriya not to dislike him. Since childhood, Bakugo was a bully with a strong quirk, and anyone who went against him would get beaten up. Everyone who knew Bakugo was afraid of him. Maybe Midoriya Izuku was friends with Bakugo when they were younger, but now he didn't want to deal with Bakugo at all. Getting involved with him would only bring trouble. Hey Deku, didn't you hear me? Bakugo, standing on the desk, looked angrily at Midoriya Izuku. This made Midoriya very upset. He was thinking about something and didn't hear Bakugo, but he didn't provoke him either. I said, Deku, how can a useless, quirkless, like you be in the same class as me? Bakugo's mocking words made the other classmates laugh secretly. Quirkless, like Midoriya Izuku, was indeed as rare as a giant panda. Are you picking on me for no reason? Bakugo's words made Midoriya's teeth itch, but he held back. He couldn't afford to provoke Bakugo, so he decided to avoid him. Midoriya obediently lay on his desk, using a book to cover his face, showing an embarrassed look that made the classmates laugh even more. In Japan, school ends very early, usually allowing students to participate in club activities. But Midoriya was a proud member of the Going Home Club. However, he wasn't going home now. He was running towards the seaside park. The seaside park in Midoriya's city had another name, the junkyard. Some people sneakily dump all kinds of unmanageable electronic waste at the seaside park. Over time, it has become a mountain of trash, mostly broken TVs, refrigerators, and old trucks. Midoriya Izuku skillfully ran to the seaside park and walked straight into the depths of the trash pile. It was clear he came here often. Since the seaside park was a well-known dump, people occasionally came to throw away garbage, but no one really wanted to get close. In this undisturbed place, Midoriya Izuku walked to a mountain of electronic waste. Underneath the pile of electronic waste, there was a very hidden small door. The door was just big enough for someone of Midoriya's middle school size to pass through. There was a seemingly sturdy lock on it. Midoriya Izuku took a key from his pocket, unlocked the door, and slipped inside. Midoriya skillfully found a spot and turned on a battery-powered light, revealing a hidden room about the size of a standard room. It was filled with all kinds of mechanical instruments, making it hard to understand what they were for. Midoriya walked to a corner and turned on a communication device. A girl with pink hair appeared on the screen and greeted him immediately. Hey Midoriya, you're really late today. The baby you asked for is ready. Really, Hatsume, thank you so much. Midoriya Izuku was very grateful to the pink-haired girl named Hatsume. He had received a lot of help from her and felt useless thinking back on it. 3 years ago, when Midoriya was still in elementary school, he followed his mom's advice to learn more and train his body, hoping to become a hero one day. During his daily running exercises, his planned route took him through the seaside park, where he met Hatsume. At that time, the girl was about his age, carrying big bags and tinkering with the electronic waste. Midoriya Izuku, who was running, stopped and was drawn to her. Maybe because someone was watching, Hatsume stopped her work, and they got to know each other. Through their conversations, Midoriya learned that the girl was treasure hunting there. She didn't live in the city but had heard about the large electronic waste dump at the seaside park and came to find parts she could use. As they talked more, Midoriya Izuku learned that Mei Hatsume wanted to use the parts to make equipment. Her dream was to make her hero equipment famous worldwide. At that moment, Midoriya thought about hero equipment. Now, professional heroes wore equipment to better use their quirks. Can I do that too? Midoriya Izuku had this idea. He was quirkless, so he started behind others. But he could use various equipment to help himself and wouldn't be worse than others. So, Midoriya Izuku became Mei Hatsume's student, learning how to make equipment from her. Over time, Midoriya realized that this girl was undoubtedly a genius, and he felt he couldn't match her talent for making equipment. But it was different. Mei Hatsume's dream was to make her equipment famous worldwide, while Midoriya wanted to use the equipment to become a hero. Creating all kinds of support equipment and using them to train for battles, this is the effort Midoriya Izuku has been putting in. At the seaside park, not only is there no one to disturb him, but it's also a treasure trove of materials. So, after long hours of hard work, Midoriya Izuku built a secret base there, filled with various equipment he made over the years. Whenever he didn't understand something, he would ask Hatsume, learning more about how professional heroes fight, gaining experience and skills, and using the equipment to imitate heroes. Midoriya Izuku knew he wasn't a genius. His quirk wasn't as good as Bakugo's, and his talent wasn't as good as Hatsume's. The only thing he could rely on was hard work. He practiced thousands of times. Sometimes he made mistakes and ended up with a bloody head, and sometimes the equipment failed and left him covered in injuries. But Midoriya gritted his teeth and kept going. Maybe their initial intentions were different, but his mom, Midoriya Inko, was right. The knowledge he learned made it easier for him to understand Hatsume's teachings, and the physical training from a young age allowed him to endure the next step of harsh training. At this point, Midoriya Izuku found his goal. What kind of hero does he want to become in the future? Maybe Midoriya Izuku didn't have an answer before, but now he can tell you. I want to become an all-around hero in the future. Comment 3. Chapter 3. Chapter Designing Equipment. Midoriya Izuku is quirkless, and he knows this fact better than anyone. But aside from the quirk, he is no different from others. In fact, his mind works better, and his body is stronger due to long-term training. Now he has something to make up for his lack of quirk. Under Hatsume's guidance, Izuku can also make some useful tools. After long-term effort, he is just standing on the same starting line as others. The effort and reward are completely out of proportion. But Midoriya Izuku is still very happy. At least now, he has the basics to become a hero. So the next goal is that one. Midoriya Izuku's goal is unwavering, and that is UA High School. UA High School is known as Japan's most famous hero school and is the alma mater of the #1 hero, All Might. Anyone who admires All Might and wants to become a hero would choose to study at UA without hesitation. Therefore, the entrance exam for UA High School eliminates 90% of applicants every year. The students who get in are all top elites. Midoriya Izuku's goal in 3 years is naturally UA High School. Even though he is just starting middle school now, he is already planning to take the UA High School entrance exam in the future. Now he is just barely on the same starting line as other students. Midoriya doesn't dare to stop. He must work even harder. In the coming days, Midoriya Izuku continues to maintain high-intensity training and studying. The knowledge needed to design equipment is not a small amount. Midoriya spends most of his time absorbing knowledge, which results in perfect scores in his regular studies, making his teachers look at him with new respect. After school every day, he spends at least 2 hours on physical training. To make the equipment work, he must have a strong body. It's still not working. Midoriya Izuku scratched his seaweed-like hair in frustration. He was in his secret base at the seaside park, struggling with a current problem. Midoriya-chan, is the baby not meeting your needs? Through a communication device, Midoriya was talking to Hatsume about the problem he was facing. He had asked this genius inventor girl to help him make a tool, and now he had to seek her help again due to the tricky issue. The climbing function of the spider gloves meets the requirements, but the web shooting part often malfunctions. Midoriya Izuku's technical skills weren't enough, so he had asked Hatsume to make equipment for him. The gloves were inspired by the professional hero, Spider-Man, and were supposed to have wall climbing and web shooting functions. Midoriya-chan. The pink-haired girl sighed through the communication device. Hatsume said helplessly, Spider-Man relies on his quirk. Even if we had the special materials to make the web, we don't have the technology to create such high-tech equipment. Sorry. Midoriya Izuku apologized, knowing he was asking for too much. There were no perfect solutions in the world. But Midoriya-chan, why do you want to imitate Spider-Man? Hatsume asked curiously. There were so many famous professional heroes with all kinds of quirks. Although Spider-Man was well known, he wasn't particularly outstanding. Besides All Might, Spider-Man is also one of my favorite heroes. His quirk is very versatile and effective in various situations, so I wanted to start from there. I see. Hatsume thought for a moment and then had a good idea. She said to Midoriya, "Midoriya-chan, why don't you try combining the features of several professional heroes?" "What?" Hatsume's sudden suggestion stunned Midoriya Izuku, but it also opened up his mind. He had always admired those professional heroes separately, but now he could develop equipment by combining their fighting styles. "Thank you, Hatsume. You're a genius." "Hee, I am a genius after all." With new inspiration, Midoriya Izuku started sketching in his secret base. How should he design his equipment? He decided to go for the best. He crossed out unrealistic functions and kept the achievable ones, focusing on creating the essential features first. "How about this, Hatsume? Can it work?" After spending most of the day drawing his sketches, Midoriya nervously sent them to the inventor girl. He knew he had to rely on her genius for the technical aspects. Although it's difficult to achieve, challenges are meant to be overcome. "I believe this will be a great baby." Hatsume's response showed that the design had piqued her interest, and she assured Midoriya that she would handle it. "That's great." Midoriya felt a bit guilty for owing Hatsume so many favors, but it only made him more determined to become a hero. You should know that Midoriya promised this genius inventor girl that he would advertise her equipment and make it famous worldwide when he became a hero. Time always flies by. While Hatsume was helping Midoriya develop equipment, he didn't slack off either. He kept training his body and honing his skills. At Siren Middle School, during break time, Midoriya Izuku was crouching at his desk, playing with a string. Of course, he wasn't just playing, he was practicing his knot-tying skills. His hands moved quickly, and the string in his hands turned into various shapes like flowers, birds, nets, and rabbits. It's no exaggeration to say that if there were a string figure competition, Midoriya Izuku would surely win. "Hey Deku, what are you doing sneaking around?" While Midoriya Izuku was quietly doing his daily training, trouble came looking for him. Bakugo Katsuki, with his usual arrogant expression, walked straight to Midoriya Izuku and slammed his fist on his desk. He seemed to use some of his explosion quirk, and the loud noise almost made Midoriya Izuku fall off his chair, which was now tilting backward. To steady himself, Midoriya's hands reached out to grab the desk, and the string was still in his hands. "Hey, you loser, are you still a kid? Playing with this stuff alone?" Bakugo Katsuki didn't hesitate to mock him, and other classmates followed suit, laughing loudly at Midoriya Izuku, making him a laughingstock. Despite this, Midoriya Izuku didn't get angry. He was used to Bakugo's behavior and remained silent, shrinking back into his seat. "Deku, say something. Are you even a man?" Bakugo taunted him even more loudly, putting Midoriya in an embarrassing position, but Midoriya still didn't react. To other classmates, it seemed like Midoriya Izuku was scared of Bakugo Katsuki, which made him so timid. Maybe Bakugo thought the same, but only Midoriya knew the truth. It doesn't matter. Wasting time and energy fighting with Bakugo was pointless. Midoriya was determined to become a hero. Midoriya Izuku always remembered what All Might said, "A hero's time is very precious." One comment. Chapter 4, Chapter by Chance. Time always flies. Midoriya Izuku is now in his second year of middle school at Orozuru Middle School. Besides having more muscles, he has also grown a bit taller. Well, just a little bit taller. Midoriya Izuku has been troubled lately. He doesn't know why Bakugo Katsuki keeps picking on him. He has been trying hard to avoid Bakugo, but for some reason, Bakugo keeps finding ways to bother him. Recently it has gotten worse. Besides the verbal insults, Bakugo even tripped him on purpose during the last gym class, almost causing him to fall and get hurt. Bakugo's increasingly bad behavior has been giving Midoriya a headache. But conflicts between classmates can't be solved with violence. And to be honest, Midoriya is still very afraid of Bakugo. After getting beaten up so many times as a kid, it's impossible not to have some psychological scars. But this can't go on. Finally, Midoriya decided to take the initiative. After school, instead of going to his secret base at the seaside park, he waited for Bakugo at the school gate. As the students left one by one, Midoriya saw Bakugo walking out of the school gate, laughing and chatting with a few classmates. "Kaken, what do you want, Deku?" At the school gate, Midoriya called out to Bakugo. Bakugo, who had been laughing and chatting with others, stopped and his face turned nasty when he saw Midoriya. He replied in a very unfriendly tone. "Why do you keep picking on me at school?" Without any pretense, Midoriya Izuku directly asked what he wanted to know. "Picking on you?" Bakugo's face turned even nastier at Midoriya's question, but he sarcastically replied, "Yes, that's right. I just can't stand you, you useless loser acting all high and mighty." As soon as he finished speaking, Bakugo brushed past Midoriya, not wanting to say anything more. The other classmates quickly followed Bakugo, not daring to say anything to Midoriya either. High and mighty? Midoriya Izuku thought to himself, he had nothing to do with that word. At school, he was usually alone and hardly talked to other classmates. How could he be called high and mighty? Unable to figure it out, Midoriya decided to look at it from Bakugo's perspective. First, he needed to understand what kind of person Bakugo Katsuki was. Growing up with him, Midoriya knew this very well. Arrogant, proud, with a strong sense of self-esteem, and unable to stand people who are better than him. As Midoriya thought about it, he suddenly understood. Could it be because of this? He recalled the final exams of the first year of middle school. Midoriya, who studied hard to become a hero, naturally got perfect scores in all subjects, making him a top student. Although Bakugo wasn't bad, his grades were far behind Midoriya's. Because of this, the classmates compared Bakugo and Midoriya. Midoriya remembered that Bakugo seemed very angry at that time. Then, in the recent mock exams, Midoriya still got perfect scores in all subjects, while Bakugo's grades had improved a lot but were still far behind Midoriya's. It seems like he started targeting me back then. Izuku suddenly realized that Bakugo, with his relentless personality, hated being compared to others, especially if they were better than him. Although Bakugo was a top student, compared to Midoriya, it made him feel embarrassed. Midoriya Izuku couldn't help but regret not hiding his good grades better. As a result, Bakugo targeted him. Now, even if he got bad grades on purpose, Bakugo would think he was pretending to be weak and would still see him as a threat. What a hassle! Izuku decided not to think about Bakugo anymore. He had more important things to do. On a weekend, Midoriya Izuku was walking down the street, playing with a string in his hands, quickly forming different shapes that passers-by couldn't see clearly. Screws, copper wire, mini batteries. He muttered the materials he needed to buy. Although he could find many useful things at the Seaside Park's junkyard, some items still needed to be bought from the store. Thanks to the junkyard at the Seaside Park, Midoriya's allowance was enough to develop and make his equipment. As he passed a street corner, Izuku suddenly heard explosions, screams, fire, smoke, and chaos. The sudden situation made Midoriya nervous. What happened? Seeing people running away, Midoriya asked out loud. "There's a villain." A kind passerby answered Midoriya and then ran away. This was not the time to watch the excitement. A villain? Seeing the exploding street and the panicked crowd, Midoriya Izuku felt scared too. In this hero society with a high crime rate, villains often use their quirks to commit crimes. In such situations, ordinary people could easily get hurt before professional heroes arrived. At this moment, Midoriya Izuku knew what he had to do. As someone who aspired to be a hero, he should turn around, step back, and run away. All in one go. Just kidding. Midoriya Izuku was a second-year middle school student, a 13-year-old kid. Was he going to stop a villain? Izuku wasn't that foolish. He was quirkless, and getting involved would only put him in danger. Running away and waiting for professional heroes to handle it was the right thing to do. Midoriya Izuku was sure of it. As Midoriya ran with the crowd, the villain finally revealed himself, a 3-meter-tall giant werewolf. With a swipe of his claw, he flipped cars off the road. Seeing this, Izuku ran even faster. Is this what villains are like? Do heroes have to fight these monsters? Midoriya Izuku was filled with fear. Was his dream of becoming a hero really possible? While people were desperately running away, someone always got left behind. A mother was pulling her daughter to escape, but in the crowd, she lost her daughter's hand. As the mother anxiously searched, she saw her daughter had fallen behind the fleeing crowd and was crying loudly. "My daughter, my daughter." As the mother called out for her daughter, a giant 3-meter-tall werewolf appeared behind the little girl, its red eyes full of killing intent. No. Where are the heroes? Save my daughter. The mother was desperate, relying on the heroes who hadn't arrived yet. Just as the werewolf was about to tear the little girl apart, someone acted. As the werewolf's right claw swung at the girl, someone moved even faster. Steel wires shot out, wrapped around the girl, and pulled her away just in time, leaving the claw to hit nothing. Midoriya Izuku was holding the crying girl. He didn't know why he stepped forward. Maybe his body moved before his mind did. One comment. Chapter 5. Chapter 5 Steel Wire Array. Wearing a hood, Midoriya Izuku's casual clothes had a hood that covered his green hair to avoid being recognized. After saving the girl, Midoriya quickly ran away with her. Facing the enemy head-on was unwise. Saving the girl and running was the best choice. Bang! A traffic light pole was thrown like a spear and landed in front of Midoriya. He turned back, sweating, and saw the werewolf still in a throwing stance. It was clearly his work. What do you want? Midoriya spoke nervously, but he forced himself to face the enemy. That throw was clearly a warning. "Prey, my prey." The werewolf howled at Midoriya, looking crazed. Midoriya knew the enemy was even more dangerous. "Go back to your mom." Midoriya gently told the girl as he put her down, then faced the bloodthirsty werewolf. He couldn't back down. At least let the child escape. Midoriya's only thought was to let the girl escape. If the werewolf wouldn't let its prey go, Midoriya decided to become the prey. But that didn't mean he would give up. Prey could also be a hunter. Midoriya's heart pounded, not from fear, but from excitement. He wanted to be a hero so badly, and that's why he worked so hard. He had never shown his skills to anyone, and reason and reality never allowed him to act impulsively, but now, Midoriya thought, just this once, let me be reckless. He reached out his hands, wearing black gloves he always carried for modifications and research. They proved useful at this critical moment. Based on the Spider Gloves prototype, Midoriya designed and Hatsume created new equipment, the Reaper Gloves. Blood. Flesh. At this moment, the werewolf couldn't hold back his boiling beastly nature and lunged at Midoriya Izuku. He just wanted to tear the person in front of him into pieces and enjoy it. Here it comes. Staring intently at the werewolf's movements, Midoriya Izuku was scared but not panicked. A steel wire shot out from the glove on his right hand, wrapping around a streetlight. The strong retraction pulled him away from his original spot. The werewolf, missing his target, wouldn't let his prey escape and crazily charged straight at Midoriya Izuku. Watching the werewolf's actions, Midoriya Izuku's brain worked quickly. His left hand aimed at another streetlight across the road, and another steel wire shot out, pulling him away again. As Midoriya escaped, he left a steel wire wrapped around the original streetlight with his right hand. When he reached another streetlight, he immediately cut the steel wire from his right hand and wrapped it around the new pole. When the werewolf chased after Midoriya Izuku, his leg got caught in the steel wire, causing him to fall hard to the ground. But the werewolf quickly got up, grabbed the steel wire, and pulled up 2 streetlights from the ground. He angrily threw the wire and the streetlights aside, smashing a car in the process. The steel wire of the Reaper Gloves was made of special material. A thin wire could even pull a car. For strength and toughness, Midoriya gave up the stickiness of spider silk. As Hatsume said, she couldn't make something as sticky, strong, and tough as Spider-Man's web. Abandoning flashy functions, Midoriya chose more practical effects and trained accordingly. Now, hiding far away, Midoriya Izuku quickly planned how to deal with the werewolf in front of him. Big body, great strength, unclear mind. While Midoriya was planning, the werewolf saw the prey that had tripped him and immediately charged at Midoriya again. Without a word, Midoriya escaped again. Skillfully using the Reaper gloves, he led the werewolf around like walking a dog. In the street, with the steel wire pulling him, Midoriya Izuku had excellent mobility. The werewolf was always a bit behind and couldn't catch Midoriya Izuku. The endless chase without catching his prey seemed to annoy the werewolf. He stopped, grabbed a car parked by the roadside with his claws, and threw it directly at Midoriya Izuku. Bloody mess. The werewolf didn't care about anything else. He just wanted to see his prey's blood and flesh. The car flew straight at Midoriya Izuku. If it hit him, he would be seriously injured if not dead. Things didn't go as expected. The car, thrown by the werewolf, stopped in front of Midoriya Izuku. After moving forward a bit, it seemed to be stopped by an invisible force. Then the whole car was bounced back by the invisible force, hitting the werewolf and knocking him over. Finally set it up, Midoriya said excitedly. The move he had trained so hard for was finally used in real action for the first time. In front of Midoriya Izuku, a fine steel wire formed a net. It was this wire net that protected him and sent the car thrown by the werewolf back. While being chased by the werewolf, every time Midoriya Izuku moved, he left a steel wire at a place that could bear weight. Without retrieving them, these wires quietly stayed on the ground. With multiple points of force, they eventually formed a large net. This fighting style could be used for both attack and defense, and the werewolf got caught in the steel wire net that Midoriya had set up. Midoriya Izuku had spent a long time training this fighting style. Although it was a bit immature and lacking, he still gave this move a name. Steel wire technique, spiderweb. The werewolf, now trapped in the steel wire net, didn't know what was happening due to his lack of reason. He just fiercely lunged at his prey. First, like this. Facing the werewolf's attack, Midoriya Izuku didn't panic. He pressed down with his right middle finger, and a steel wire rose under the werewolf's feet, tripping him and making him fall to the ground again. Lose mobility. At the same time, Midoriya pressed down with his left thumb and ring finger, and two steel wires rose beside the werewolf, wrapping around his legs. As the werewolf tried to get up, the wires tightened, pulling his legs together. With his legs tightly bound, the werewolf couldn't move. He snarled at Midoriya Izuku, waving his claws wildly. Lose attack ability. Midoriya pressed down with his right thumb and pinky, and the steel wires rose again, wrapping around the werewolf's claws. The more the enemy struggled, the tighter the wires became. Blood. Flesh. The werewolf roared unwillingly. His prey was right in front of him, and he wouldn't stop. He struggled with all his might. The steel wires cut into his flesh, and blood spurted from his arms and legs. Midoriya Izuku became nervous and panicked. Steel wires, being so thin, were like knives to some extent. Fearing that the enemy might lose his limbs because of him, Midoriya Izuku quickly took action. He moved his right and left hands continuously, and the preset wires wrapped around the werewolf from all angles. He tied the werewolf's claws and body together, wrapped his thighs and calves again, and completely bound the enemy like a spider spinning a web. With the web set up through Midoriya's long-term training and brain calculations, the werewolf couldn't break free. The more he struggled, the tighter the wires became. Midoriya used fire hydrants, guardrails, and other strong points as pulleys, and the werewolf was now tied up and unable to move. Because the wires were tightly bound to his body and the points of force, the werewolf couldn't even struggle anymore. Wiping away non-existent sweat, Midoriya Izuku finally stopped. The death gloves cut the wires, and he tied the strings to the roadside railings. That should do it. But did I succeed? Izuku stood there in a daze. He looked at the werewolf, now tightly bound, and couldn't believe that he had really subdued this monster-like enemy. Seeing that the werewolf couldn't move at all, the passers-by cheered and clapped. Midoriya Izuku snapped out of it and quickly turned to leave. Run quickly. With his hood on, Midoriya Izuku escaped the scene in a few steps. He couldn't be seen or recorded. If his mom, Midoriya Inko, found out he did something so dangerous, she would cry her heart out. One comment. Chapter 6. Chapter 6 Disguise. Police always arrive after everything is over. This also applies to professional heroes. When Kamui Woods from the nearby hero agency arrived, he saw the werewolf tightly bound by steel wires. He heard from the onlookers. It was a student with a hood. He looked like a middle schooler. He defeated the enemy. Really? It seems the student's quirk must be very strong. He will surely become a famous hero in the future. Kamui Woods was amazed at how strong young students were these days. Midoriya Izuku, hiding nearby, was thrilled to hear Kamui Woods' words. He had been recognized by a professional hero. Even though he didn't have a quirk, he used his equipment to defeat the enemy. This was the result of his long efforts. With the professional heroes handling the aftermath, Midoriya quietly slipped away from the crowd. He didn't want to be on the news and worry his mom. When Midoriya Izuku reached his secret base at the seaside park, he excitedly turned on his communication device to contact Hatsune. "What's up, Midoriya-chan?" Midoriya excitedly told Hatsune about encountering the enemy on the street and using the Reaper gloves to defeat the werewolf. He firmly said, "It works. A quirkless person can become a hero." "Of course, Midoriya-chan. I've seen your hard work." The genius inventor girl praised Midoriya. Even though she developed and made the equipment, it was Midoriya's daily training that made him use it so well. And the enemy had a strength-type quirk, which is the worst match for the Reaper gloves. Plus, I didn't have all the parts with me because I was just out shopping. Seeing Midoriya Izuku start to ramble, Hatsune sighed. When he got deep into thinking, he always ended up like this. Sometimes she wondered if Midoriya's quirk was rambling. Despite this, the event was a huge boost to Midoriya's confidence. The giant werewolf was in a confused state, and Midoriya used his web to trap him. But his equipment wasn't at full capacity. Midoriya Izuku designed the Reaper gloves, considering different types of enemies. He couldn't always have the perfect terrain to weave his web, so he made additional tools. The steel anchor, the main part of the Reaper gloves, was hand-sized and cone-shaped. Its sharp tip could pierce concrete and hold firmly. It stored steel wires inside, which could be shot out. With this tool, Midoriya Izuku could quickly weave a steel web. After studying many professional heroes' data, Midoriya made the Reaper gloves to counter fast enemies. But they were less effective against strong, tough enemies. Midoriya Izuku didn't aim for perfection. He planned to rely on equipment in battles. If one tool wasn't enough, he would use more. But I still need real combat experience to use the equipment better. Izuku sighed. This fight with the enemy made him realize his current level and understand the flaws of the Reaper gloves. It was clear that working behind closed doors had its limits. "So, Midoriya-chan, do you want to try fighting enemies like today?" Hatsune suggested through the communicator. In today's society, besides professional heroes fighting enemies, there are often people with strong quirks who act as vigilantes to subdue enemies. The law clearly states that only those with a hero license can freely use their quirks to fight enemies. But not everyone wants to become a hero. Many people with strong quirks choose other careers, but sometimes they want to play hero and will actively look for criminals to catch and act as vigilantes. Although this is technically illegal, it does help maintain social peace. So, whether it's the police or professional heroes, they usually turn a blind eye to it. Midoriya Izuku was tempted by Hatsume's suggestion. He wanted to become a hero in the future, and finding some weaker enemies to fight and train himself now seemed like a good idea. But, thinking about his mom, Midoriya Inko, if she knew he was doing such dangerous things outside, she would cry her heart out. Izuku explained his dilemma to the girl. "Then just disguise yourself so no one can recognize you." "Disguise?" Midoriya suddenly realized this method. Hatsume took out a bottle of ink-like substance from her toolbox and showed it to Izuku through the video call. "Tada! This is dye for my baby. It's all natural and non-corrosive. You can wash it off with a special cleaner. Dye your green hair black." "Will it really work? Isn't wearing a mask better?" Midoriya asked hesitantly. Hatsume replied bluntly. "Your face is so ordinary that no one will remember it at a glance. It's just your green seaweed hair that's too distinctive. Dye it black, and no one will recognize you." That's too harsh. Midoriya felt a bit hurt being called ordinary. Even if it's true, don't say it so directly. Don't worry, dyeing your hair will be like Superman's glasses. With it on and off, you'll look like two different people. I'll send it to you by express mail. With the decisive action of the genius inventor girl, it was settled. Midoriya Izuku would go find enemies for real combat, which would also help test the equipment and provide better data for improvements. Time flew by, and a week passed in the blink of an eye. On the second weekend, Midoriya Izuku was ready in his secret base. He changed into a rarely worn black outfit and put the dye Hatsum May sent him into a basin, slowly dyeing his green hair black. Afterwards, "How do I look?" Standing in front of the communicator, Midoriya Izuku nervously asked Hatsum May. Since it was her idea, only she could judge the result. A moment of silence. "Hey handsome, who are you?" "Ah." Midoriya Izuku's face turned red. It was the first time someone called him handsome, and it was a girl. It was a bit too much excitement. "Haha, just kidding." Hatsum May laughed heartily, making Midoriya feel like he had been tricked. He really felt deceived. The disguise turned out pretty well. You used to look very sunny, but now you have a sneaky vibe. Doesn't that make me a bad guy? Hatsum May's comment left Midoriya speechless. It felt like she was saying he had changed his character. Telling you this much is useless. Take a selfie with your phone and see for yourself. So Midoriya Izuku took out his phone, took a selfie, and looked at his current appearance. Who is this? Izuku couldn't recognize himself at all. Hatsum May was right. His black hair covered his eyes a bit, giving him a cold and dangerous look at first glance. For comment. Chapter 7. Chapter 7 Testing the Waters. It should be here, right? With black hair and wearing black clothes for easy movement, it was Midoriya Izuku. Looking at the dirty street with few pedestrians, he felt a bit scared. Could he really do this? Midoriya felt like backing out. Even though he accepted Hatsum May's suggestion to do good deeds, he had used news and online information to locate this place by taking the subway to the neighboring city. There were no hero agencies nearby, so the security wasn't good, and there were often thieves and robbers around. But at his current level, dealing with some small-time crooks shouldn't be a problem, right? Izuku thought maybe. It was from the news report he heard that day after going home. The werewolf he defeated was a vicious criminal who had been on the run from the police. His quirk was werewolf, and he would go berserk at the smell of blood. It seemed that day, a passerby got injured and bled, causing the werewolf to go on a rampage in the street. Midoriya still felt a bit scared thinking about it. He had bravely fought such a vicious enemy, but luckily he managed to subdue him. Because of this, Midoriya Izuku gained some confidence to find simpler enemies to practice on. After all, he had defeated something more dangerous, right? Walking down the street, Midoriya thought about what he knew. It was said that in this city, because there were few hero agencies, there were even fewer professional heroes patrolling, so crimes happened often. In today's superhuman society, many people wanted to take advantage of their strong quirks to get things without working for them. So even though there were many professional heroes, the crime rate was still high. But there shouldn't be anyone committing crimes in broad daylight, right? Midoriya Izuku scratched his head. Although there were few pedestrians on the street, it looked peaceful. There was no sign of anyone committing crimes in broad daylight. Then, two people broke out of a supermarket window in front of Midoriya, carrying a cash register and running away. "Someone help, catch those robbers." The cashier who ran out shouted, but the pedestrians, used to such scenes, ignored him. "No way." Midoriya's mouth dropped open in surprise. Could his words be that accurate? As the cashier kept shouting for help, Izuku finally reacted. Wasn't this the time for him to step in? Midoriya Izuku took a deep breath and quickly chased after the two robbers. All Might once said, "A hero won't stand by and do nothing." Hee, this time we hit the jackpot. A strong man was running away with a supermarket cash register in his arms. His quirk was super strength, so carrying such a heavy thing was easy for him. "Boss, there's a kid chasing us." A skinny man with a sneaky look and two front teeth sticking out told the strong man. His quirk was rat, making him look and sense things like a rat. Seeing no one else behind them, just a kid chasing, the strong man stopped and turned to face Midoriya Izuku, shouting, "Kid, I advise you not to meddle. Be careful or my brother and I, the power rats, will make you regret it." "The boss is right. Kid, watch out for your life." The strong man and the rat man echoed each other, making Midoriya Izuku think they were wasting their talent not acting in movies. Midoriya Izuku stayed silent. He wasn't foolish enough to talk the robbers into surrendering. He reached behind his waist, grabbing the two steel anchors, hanging there with his hands wearing the Reaper gloves. Seeing Midoriya Izuku ready to fight, the strong man didn't bother talking anymore. He threw the cash register at Midoriya. He only wanted the money inside, so he could pick it up after dealing with the annoying kid. "Here it comes." As the cash register flew at him, Midoriya Izuku rolled to the side to dodge it and threw the steel anchor at the strong man with his right hand. Such an obvious move was easy to dodge. The strong man sidestepped the steel anchor, but he didn't notice it landed behind him and fixed itself to the ground. "Stupid kid, let's see what you've got." The strong man charged at Midoriya Izuku. His quirk, super strength, could even lift a car. If he caught the kid, he would break his bones. Too slow. To Midoriya Izuku, the strong man was slower than the werewolf he fought before. He could easily handle him with the Reaper gloves. But today, Midoriya's main goal was to test the steel anchors. He had only used them in training, not in real combat. The steel anchor had it that could pierce concrete and fix itself. The other end had 5 steel wire nozzles, which could shoot out wires. The shooting command could be controlled with the Reaper gloves. "Feet." Midoriya commanded the steel anchor to shoot 2 wires at the strong man's feet. The wires wrapped around his legs, making him fall flat on his face. "Dimin, what's going on?" "Boss, your feet." The rat man's senses were sharp. He noticed Midoriya Izuku's move and warned the strong man. "DM kid, trying to be clever." Angrily pulling the steel wire off his foot, the big guy charged at Midoriya Izuku even faster. He wanted to teach this arrogant kid a lesson. The initial test went well, so now. Izuku's eyes sparkled. It was time to show the true power of the Reaper gloves and steel anchor combo. He threw another steel anchor with his left hand, fixing it to the wall beside the street. Both pieces of equipment were ready. Midoriya Izuku moved both hands at the same time. The 2 steel anchors shot out steel wires under the control of the gloves. The steel wires from the Reaper gloves also shot out at the same time, wrapping around the fire hydrant, the streetlight pole, and the shop windows on the street. Once the steel wires from the Reaper gloves and the steel anchors touched, they stuck together tightly, making it hard to pull them apart even with great force. Like the positive and negative poles of a magnet, the special material of the steel wires had this sticky property. Using this method, Midoriya Izuku's steel wire technique, spider web, was instantly set up. As the big guy charged at him, Midoriya Izuku just moved his right thumb a few times, and several steel wires came out of nowhere, binding him tightly. The big guy tried to break free with his strength, but Izuku moved his left hand, and several steel wires hooked onto his feet, hanging him upside down from the streetlight pole. Ah! Seeing the situation turn bad, the rat guy tried to run away. But Izuku wouldn't let the robber escape. With a flick of his left index finger and right thumb, several steel wires hooked onto the rat guy's feet. With a look of despair, he was also hung upside down from the streetlight pole, keeping his boss company. "Easier than I thought." Midoriya Izuku was pleasantly surprised. He didn't expect to be this strong now. All those days and nights of training had paid off. With the 2 robbers subdued, Midoriya Izuku cut the steel wires holding them up, leaving them as they were. He then collected the other steel wires and steel anchors. The Reaper gloves were made by Hatsume, but the steel anchors were made by Izuku himself, so he couldn't waste them. With the 2 robbers cursing, Izuku turned and ran away. In this situation, it's best to stay low-key. One comment. Chapter 8, Chapter Daily Learning. Two robbers were subdued by a vigilante passerby using steel wire-like quirk. Based on the criminal's statements and the scene, it is believed to be the same middle school student who subdued the werewolf. At home, Midoriya Izuku was watching the news. The reporter showed two pictures, one of the werewolf bound by the web and the other of the two robbers hanging upside down from the streetlight pole. This kind of gossip news was always popular in the media. Izuku could see his news on any channel. The coverage is huge. Because they heard it was a middle school student, it caught people's attention more. As Midoriya marveled at his news coverage, his mom, Midoriya Inko, placed dinner on the table and casually mentioned what Izuku had said. But when I first heard that the werewolf quirk enemy was subdued by a middle school student, and the interviewed pedestrian said the kid had green hair, I was scared and thought it was you, Izuku. How could it be? I'm Quirkless. If I met such a fierce enemy, I wouldn't even have time to run away. Besides, didn't they say the middle school student had black hair? When his mom, Midoriya Inko, suddenly mentioned it, Izuku quickly waved his hands and denied it, his face showing nervousness. Yeah. I was also thinking, why would Izuku go and do something so dangerous? Midoriya's mom agreed with her son, not noticing that Izuku had turned his face away in embarrassment. Lying to mom is so hard. Izuku had never lied to anyone before, let alone his own mom, Midoriya Inko. He felt really uncomfortable. But there was no choice. To achieve his dream of becoming a hero, he had to do some dangerous training. Midoriya Izuku decided this was necessary. After quickly finishing his meal, Midoriya Izuku went straight to his room and locked the door. He took out the communication device from his clothes, and the image of the genius girl Hatsum May appeared. Midoriya-chan, you're right on time today. Let's get started. Thank you, Hatsum May. Midoriya Izuku took out his notebook and watched the knowledge Hatsum May was sharing through the video. He listened carefully and took notes. After about an hour, there was a knock on the door. Izuku, do you want some fruit? Yes, Mom. Midoriya gestured to Hatsum May, who understood and turned off the video to avoid his mom, Midoriya Inko, finding out. When he opened the door, Midoriya's mom looked suspiciously around his room but didn't find anything strange. Izuku gratefully took the fruit plate from her, and Midoriya Inko reluctantly left. It's strange. I often hear a girl's voice from Izuku's room, but I can't find anything strange. Midoriya Inko had been worried. For the past 2 years, she occasionally heard a girl's voice from Midoriya Izuku's room and thought her son had reached that age. After Izuku went to school, she searched thoroughly. But she found nothing. Even his computer was full of All Might stuff, which made Midoriya Inko annoyed at seeing All Might's face. After a long search with no results, Midoriya Inko didn't want to talk to Izuku about it, as it would be awkward if it was something related to his teenage years. Over time, Midoriya Inko didn't think much about it, but she would occasionally try to catch her son off guard, only to find nothing unusual. Midoriya-chan, does your mom think you're hiding something? Hee hee. As soon as the communication resumed, Hatsum May covered her mouth and laughed evilly, with a knowing look on her face. Izuku turned his head to the side in embarrassment. Even a simple guy like him understood what Hatsum May meant, but it was still awkward for him. He had filled his computer's storage several times with information about professional heroes and had several large-capacity USB drives as backups. By the way, 65% of Midoriya Izuku's hero information is about All Might, and the remaining 35% is about other professional heroes. Don't be so shy, you've been in private communication with me for 2 years, even if it's someone else, it's still a youthful girl. Hatsum May had a stuck expression on her face, while her hand was still on her clothes, with the gesture that if you say so, I'll take it off and show it to you. However, contrary to expectations, Midoriya Izuku looked completely untempted, like a monk who had achieved enlightenment. He calmly said, including this time, Hatsum May, you've tried to tempt me 36 times. The first time, I was so scared I turned off the video. The second time, I blushed and looked away. By the third time, I realized you were just messing with me. Midoriya-chan, you're really not much of a man. Sitting as calmly as a Buddha, Midoriya Izuku didn't change his expression. He continued to take notes on what Hatsum Mei had just explained. The inventor girl, realizing her solo act wasn't working, returned to her role as a teacher and continued to teach Izuku about invention and research. The next day, after school, Midoriya Izuku ran to the seaside park as usual. Yesterday, when their communication ended, he received Hatsum Mei's last message. Midoriya-chan, I won't be available tomorrow. You'll have to manage on your own. Hatsum Mei, Midoriya Izuku's invention teacher, would teach him about inventions whenever she had time. But she wasn't always free, so most of the time, Midoriya had to plan his own activities. But this doesn't mean Midoriya Izuku is idle. When Hatsum Mei isn't around, Izuku's daily life is actually a tough, hellish experience. He ran to the seaside park, changed his middle school uniform into sportswear at his secret base, and started his daily training. Equipment can only help him so much. Midoriya Izuku understood this. He had been training hard since he was a kid to make his body stronger than most people, but that still wasn't enough. From researching professional heroes online, he learned that some heroes' quirks weren't very strong, but their strong bodies made their quirks super powerful. This became Midoriya's best goal for his plan. High-intensity physical training was something Midoriya Izuku did in his extra time every day. Stamina training is a must for anyone who wants to be a hero. A hero's physical fitness allows them to fight enemies for 3 days and nights. After defeating all the small fry, the final boss appears. When facing the enemy boss on equal footing, and gradually getting weaker from the long fight, at this crucial moment, thinking of his inner hero creed, he would burst out with his last strength to defeat the boss. At this time, the hero can still stand on the ground and laugh out loud. Midoriya Izuku kept this in mind and made it the focus of his training. By the way, this quote is from All Might. Zero comment. Chapter 9. Chapter Daily Training, Steel Wire Technique. Huff huff. Midoriya Izuku was sweating heavily. He was pulling a rope tied to a fridge, leaving a long trail behind him. It was clear he had pulled the fridge very far. Stamina needs to be pushed to the limit to increase. Midoriya Izuku thought about this while continuing to pull the fridge. Running took too long to use up his energy. After researching training knowledge online, Izuku trained at his secret base in the seaside park. Usually, no one disturbs him here, and the appliances lying around can be easily turned into workout equipment. By modifying a fridge with ropes, it becomes a tool for strength training. Running alone takes too much time and isn't very effective. But with the modified equipment, Midoriya Izuku can quickly exhaust his energy and push his physical limits for better training results. 1 hour. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, Midoriya Izuku stopped pulling the fridge. His physical training was done. Training isn't just about doing one exercise. Midoriya Izuku looked up training plans online for people his age and made his own plan. For someone like Izuku, a middle schooler, 1 hour of physical training is the limit. Any more would harm his body and have the opposite effect. That said, when he first started pulling the fridge, he couldn't even last 20 minutes. That thing was really heavy. Breathing heavily, Midoriya Izuku rested for 10 minutes to regain some energy, then started his second training exercise. Next, strength training. Izuku lay down on a spot made from car seats, with 2 metal walls beside him to protect him from getting crushed if he lost strength. At this moment, Midoriya Izuku was blushing as he lifted a barbell. It was actually a modified piece of equipment. The bar was a car's axle, and the weights were car tires filled with metal pieces to add weight. It was so heavy that even adults couldn't lift it. Izuku found an old truck here and turned it into this equipment. He slowly lifted the barbell, pushing himself to his limit, then slowly lowered it. His hands were shaking, using all his strength. 1.2.3. Counting to himself, Midoriya Izuku continued his strength training. To be a hero, having good stamina wasn't enough, even if he didn't have All Might's incredible strength. Izuku's plan was to have strength beyond a strong adult. He knew better than anyone that he didn't have a quirk, so he aimed to surpass others in physical fitness. For example, Midoriya Izuku wanted to use steel wires to fight with skill. To bind a heavy enemy, he needed at least some strength. Like the werewolf he recently defeated, who had a strength-type quirk. Midoriya Izuku couldn't bind him head-on, but by using the pulley effect with the steel wires, he could bind an enemy much stronger than himself. After reaching his target number, Midoriya Izuku felt like his hands were about to break. But he knew from long-term training that this was just overexertion. He rolled off the bar and prepared for the next exercise. Stamina and strength were the two key factors Midoriya Izuku focused on. Other things like reaction time, flexibility, and throwing accuracy were also important, but he skipped them for today. Skill. Midoriya Izuku's next training was about using the Reaper gloves skillfully. He had defeated the werewolf and 2 robbers with this skill, which he had trained hard for a long time. Midoriya Izuku wore the Reaper gloves, without using the steel anchor. Training with just one piece of equipment was also necessary. Izuku aimed at the target, and the steel wire from his death gloves shot out, wrapping around an old TV like a spider web. Then, Midoriya Izuku swung the wire, and the old TV plowed a trench in the sand at the seaside park, scattering parts everywhere. Dragging, this move can be used against tough enemies. Suching targets, Midoriya Izuku retracted the wire and then shot it at an old tire on the ground. The wire wrapped around the tire, and Izuku yanked it into the air. Then he aimed the old tire at a broken lamp and pulled it down. The old tire, like a missile, was pulled up 180 degrees and smashed the broken lamp to pieces. Throwing, this can be used against enemies in 2 directions. Retracting the wire again, Midoriya Izuku wrapped it around an old truck. The truck's front wheels and axle were gone, clearly used by Izuku for parts. The wire wrapped around the truck from all angles, and Midoriya Izuku pulled back with his right hand. Pulling, bringing the target towards you. It can't moving. No surprise, Midoriya Izuku muttered to himself. Still can't handle targets that are too heavy. It wasn't his first time trying to pull the truck, but Izuku always gave it a shot. Even though the result was the same, the target didn't move at all. But it wasn't useless. Izuku needed to understand his limits and work towards them every day. One of Midoriya Izuku's beliefs: limits are meant to be broken. By the way, this saying was from All Might. Failing to pull the truck, Izuku continued training with the wire in other ways: weaving nets, capturing, wrapping, defense nets. Time flew by, and soon the sun was setting. Seeing the sunset over the sea, Midoriya Izuku knew it was time to go home. Today's training was over. In his secret base, he changed clothes and packed his workout clothes to take home for washing. Izuku had 2 sets of workout clothes to avoid them getting too sweaty and smelly. Locking the door of his secret base, Midoriya Izuku was about to head home when he suddenly stopped. Slowly taking out his gear from his bag, Izuku put on the death gloves again. He looked at a mannequin from a clothing store that someone had thrown away and started thinking, should I try this? Midoriya Izuku hesitated. Among his wire manipulation techniques, there was a forbidden move he had trained just because it looked cool, but it wasn't meant to be used on people. It's just a mannequin, it's fine. As if comforting himself, Izuku used his hidden forbidden move. An invisible wire shot out from the death gloves, just one wire. Midoriya Izuku's movements were too fast to see. He swung his right hand, the wire shot out, and then he quickly retracted it. From the feel of it, he knew his move had succeeded, but he was scared. Izuku didn't dare look and ran home immediately. After Midoriya ran far away, the seemingly intact mannequin finally showed a change. A smooth cut appeared at its neck, and then the head and body separated. What Izuku didn't dare to look at had already been smoothly cut in half and fell to the ground. The move Midoriya Izuku thought was cool when he created it was sealed away after training. It was called the wire technique, strangling. The quickly shot wire, when swung and retracted rapidly, was sharper than a blade and could cut through bones. One comment. Chapter 10, Chapter Equipment Material Issues. Midoriya-chan, do you know the hero Eraserhead? In their secret base, Hatsum May mentioned a professional hero's name during their communication. Yes, I know him. Although he rarely gives interviews, his quirk that cancels others' abilities makes him quite famous. He seems like a special agent, skilled in martial arts, who defeats enemies in close combat after canceling their quirks. Hatsum had just started when Midoriya Izuku began talking non-stop, making the genius inventor girl hold her head in frustration. What I mean is, have you paid attention to Eraserhead's fighting style? Fighting style? According to the data, this hero cancels the enemy's quirk and then defeats and restrains them in close combat. Because of his quirk, he uses martial arts, right? Annoyed by Midoriya Izuku's off-topic response, Hatsum emphasized each word. What is? Have you noticed Eraserhead's weapon? No. Midoriya Izuku answered honestly, making Hatsum feel even more frustrated. She had brought such big news, but he had no idea. As far as I know, Eraserhead's weapon is a bandage made of carbon fiber and special alloy. It's not only tough and lightweight but also has the ability to change shape. Change shape? Midoriya Izuku didn't quite understand, so Hatsum explained. Haven't you always wanted a material for steel wires that you can control from one end to change shape at the other end? That's what shape control is. Really? Hearing this, Midoriya Izuku got excited. The steel wires he used were only slightly better than regular materials. Now, there was something that met his goals perfectly. Don't get too excited. This material is very expensive, and I don't have any. Hatsum words were like a bucket of cold water on Midoriya Izuku's head, bringing the topic to the most critical point. Money. Midoriya Izuku came from an ordinary family. His dad worked in America and sent money to his mom, Midoriya Inko, regularly, but that didn't mean Midoriya had a lot of pocket money. He always believed that he should find his own materials. Whenever he asked Hatsum for guidance or to make equipment, he found the materials himself and even prepared extra as a reward for her. Midoriya Izuku's belief is not to trouble others. Hatsum had already helped him a lot, and the rest was up to his own efforts. Can you send me the price of that material? Hearing Midoriya Izuku's request, Hatsum sent the price of the material to his phone via text message. Looking at the message on his phone, the price of the bandage material used by Eraserhead. His mouth dropped open. So expensive. It was completely unexpected. The price listed was enough to cover Midoriya Izuku's family's living expenses for 3 years. Actually, there's another way. When you go to UA High School's support course, they have all kinds of materials, and students can use them freely. Then you can make your own equipment. Seeing Midoriya Izuku's pained expression, Hatsum suggested another way, although it would take some time. All right. Izuku agreed with Hatsum suggestion. The material was currently beyond his reach, but he didn't want to give up. Even though Hatsum said he could use the materials freely in the UA support course, Midoriya Izuku's dream was to join UA High School's hero course. Although he knew the chances were slim, Izuku couldn't help but want to try. No one said you needed a quirk to be a hero. What should I do? Izuku pondered this question. He couldn't come up with the large sum of money needed to buy the materials. As a student his age, no one would hire him for a job, and he never even considered getting money illegally. After racking his brain and finding no solution, Izuku was about to give up. At this moment, Midoriya Izuku realized a truth. Maybe having money is a super powerful quirk. At school, Midoriya Izuku was still thinking about the materials. He couldn't come up with that much money and had completely given up on the idea. Bakugo, that's awesome. Where did you get that equipment? In the classroom, some boys were exclaiming around Bakugo Katsuki. Midoriya Izuku listened in and understood that it was about the popular online game, Hero H. Midoriya was interested but had never played it. It wasn't that his mom, Midoriya Inko, forbade him from playing games. In fact, she hoped her son would play more of these games. But Midoriya Izuku spent all his time studying and training. To become a hero, Izuku didn't leave much time for fun. This is the web net you get from defeating the monster, Spider Demon. It's not easy to get. Hearing Bakugo and the other boys' conversation, Midoriya Izuku was intrigued. It wasn't the game that attracted him, but what Bakugo mentioned. fighting monsters and latte equipment. Izuku realized he was stuck. He needed materials to make gear, so he had to buy them, but they were too expensive. This was a dead end for him. Since Midoriya Izuku wanted to be a hero, he definitely wouldn't do anything illegal. But that didn't mean he couldn't take from bad guys, and of course, not money. Money was something Izuku wouldn't take from enemies because that would be a bad guy's behavior. But taking equipment was different. People who do bad things are called enemies, so taking their gear is like weakening or defeating them, which is totally in line with hero ethics. Midoriya Izuku nodded confidently. He had found a way to solve his current problem. Back home, Midoriya Izuku searched on his computer. Which enemy had gear with the materials he needed? In today's society, most professional heroes only take on tasks when they get a request. So most of the time, enemies and heroes aren't fighting to the death. Only those who break the rules too much get targeted by heroes. After nearly an hour of searching, Midoriya Izuku finally found some information. Enemy, Butcher. Quirk Mouse. Crime, serial killer, 7 victims already. There was a short video in the information, seemingly from a camera. Izuku hesitated but clicked to play it. In the video, a very fat man, over 2 meters tall, was shirtless with a long chain wrapped around him. The chain had a bloody hook at the end. 10 meters away, someone was running away in fear. The fat man threw the hook at the fleeing person. The person saw the hook and rolled to dodge it, but unexpectedly, the hook turned in midair and hit the person's back hard. With a look of terror and pain, the person was pulled step by step towards the butcher. Finally, the person was pulled in front of the butcher. The fat man's belly opened up, turning into a bloody mouth that swallowed the person whole. The video ended. Izuku didn't speak. His hands were trembling, not from fear, but from anger. Why was such a cruel enemy still roaming free, even after killing 7 people? Why hadn't any heroes stopped him? Izuku checked the related information. The butcher still hadn't been caught. It seemed the police bounty was too low, and no professional hero wanted to take on this dangerous job. Turning off the computer, Midoriya Izuku knew what he had to do. If no professional hero was willing to face this terrifying enemy for a low bounty, then he would do it himself. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 11. Chapter 11 Finding the Enemy. In his secret base at the seaside park, Izuku dyed his hair black, put on black clothes for action, and strapped the steel anchor to his waist. He wore all the gear he could use and finally put on the death gloves. Midoriya Izuku was ready. The hunt for the enemy began. It was the weekend, and Izuku's target was the enemy, Butcher. Not only did he need the gear materials, but he also couldn't let such a murderous criminal go unpunished. This person needed to face justice immediately. According to the information Midoriya Izuku found, the Butcher was very dangerous. According to online information, some professional heroes have fought the Butcher, but this enemy is too brutal and bloodthirsty. The heroes didn't dare to risk their lives, so they let the Butcher escape. Midoriya Izuku understood the hero's choice. The professional heroes in society have different reasons for their work. Some want fame, some want money, and only a few truly want to be heroes. You can't force people to risk their lives for dangerous tasks. Even heroes are just people. They can bleed, get hurt, and even die. Midoriya Izuku, who wants to be a hero, understands this well. That's why he holds on to his dream of becoming a hero. Because a hero simply wants to help others. This quote from All Might inspired Midoriya to become a hero, and he always remembers it. After tightening the Reaper gloves on his left hand, everything was ready. Midoriya Izuku. Let's go! Where is the Butcher? Actually, this information isn't hard to find. In this superhuman society, besides the areas where professional heroes often operate, there are also gray areas where enemies gather. Midoriya had already found out about the Butcher from some enemies. The 2 enemies who provided this information were the Strong Man and the Rat Man he had caught in the neighboring city. Although they were thieves, the police couldn't keep so many criminals in jail in this superhuman society. For small crimes like robbing a supermarket, they are usually detained for a week for re-education and then released. Only those who commit serious crimes are treated more seriously. You can't execute petty thieves, right? Knowing this, Midoriya Izuku went to the neighboring city to stake out. As expected, the two petty thieves couldn't resist committing another crime. When they snatched a lady's purse, Midoriya caught them and quickly tied them up on a lamppost. Before calling the police, he forced them to reveal information about the butcher. At first, the two thieves were tight-lipped, but Midoriya Izuku demonstrated his steel wire by cutting a brick smoothly in half. The strong man and the rat man trembled and told him everything. Enemies share information just like professional heroes. It's like how the news reports on what famous heroes do every day. But enemies don't care about heroes' gossip. They talk about dark topics like who killed how many people today or what crimes were committed. The brutal and bloodthirsty butcher was naturally a hot topic among the petty thieves. After getting the information, Midoriya Izuku left, hoping the police would keep those two locked up longer this time. Midoriya Izuku arrived at his destination, a slaughterhouse. This meat processing plant supplied meat to other cities, and the butcher was hiding here. After taking the subway to this place, Midoriya confirmed with the locals that the butcher was hiding in the slaughterhouse. They told him that not long ago, an enemy with a plague quirk contaminated all the meat in the slaughterhouse. Although the professional heroes caught the enemy, the quirk's effects continued, and the meat couldn't be processed. Even after removing all the rotten meat, they feared the plague might still be present. So, the slaughterhouse was abandoned, and a new one was built with the help of the local government. No one went to the old slaughterhouse anymore, fearing the plague might still be there, so it was completely abandoned. The abandoned slaughterhouse that no one visits. Midoriya Izuku had found the place. It was here. As he approached the slaughterhouse, there were no people around. After checking his surroundings, Izuku quietly sneaked in. He was very careful with each step, making no noise. The butcher was very cruel and bloodthirsty, and Izuku didn't plan to fight him head-on. Once inside without any issues, Midoriya looked around the slaughterhouse. The bloodstains on the ground were probably from poultry, and there were dull meat hooks hanging in rows. Izuku could still smell the stench. Luckily, it wasn't summer, or there would be flies everywhere. There were still some meat scraps on the machinery, probably left from production. Midoriya Izuku carefully inspected the place, but he didn't see the butcher. Was the enemy not here? No. Izuku calmly analyzed the situation. Why would the butcher hide in the slaughterhouse? From the intel, the butcher's quirk was 2 mouths, with a huge mouth on his stomach that could swallow a whole person. Although the full extent of the quirk was unknown, one thing was clear. The enemy has a big appetite. So, Midoriya Izuku pinpointed the location, the freezer. From the local residents, he learned that the abandoned slaughterhouse's freezer still had a lot of meat that hadn't been dealt with. Since the freezer was sealed, the meat wasn't contaminated by disease. It was too much to throw away, so it was left for later sorting. There was even a security guard watching over the place. Midoriya checked the signs and then quietly moved towards the freezer, making as little noise as possible. As he got closer to the freezer, Izuku heard a noise and quickly hid under a small cart used for transporting meat, peeking out carefully. The security guard tied to a pillar was trembling all over, looking very scared. Not far away, the fat man butcher was sitting on the ground, feeding a big piece of thawed pork to the huge mouth on his stomach. Target spotted. Seeing the butcher, Midoriya Izuku's heart started racing with fear and tension. But he quickly controlled his breathing to stay calm. He couldn't alert the enemy. Please, let me go. The tied-up security guard kept begging, but the butcher, who was eating, shouted angrily. Shut up or I'll eat you right now. Thinking of the butcher's cruel actions, the security guard immediately shut his mouth tightly, trembling all over, almost wetting himself. What kind of hero? Just a coward afraid to die. The mouth on the butcher's stomach was eating, while the mouth on his head kept cursing. When facing professional heroes, the butcher had prepared to fight to the death, but the heroes, valuing their lives, had let him escape on purpose. Hiding behind, Midoriya Izuku didn't react. He was quietly preparing, weaving his spider web. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. One comment. Chapter 12. Chapter the Butcher. We need to save him first. Midoriya Izuku thought to himself. The security guard tied to the pillar had to be saved first. So in that case, while Izuku was calculating, the butcher suddenly stopped eating. He sniffed the air. Fresh meat. The butcher stood up, grabbed the meat hook and chain hanging on him, and slowly walked towards Izuku's position, as if he smelled fresh meat. Have I been discovered? Midoriya Izuku was shocked but didn't panic. He knew he couldn't avoid a fight with the enemy. When he was heading towards the cold storage earlier, he had set up steel wire traps along the way. Izuku pulled his right hand, and the steel wire extended, causing a collision sound in the distance. The steel wire was tied to a high iron can. When pulled, it fell and made a noise. As expected, the butcher headed towards the sound of the falling can. Now's my chance. As the butcher turned and was distracted by the noise, Izuku quickly ran from behind the cart to the pillar. He cut the ropes binding the security guard, who looked at him in surprise. Run quickly, the enemy will be back soon. Before the guard could say anything, Izuku immediately spoke. Now was not the time for thanks. You. Although the guard wanted to ask why this middle school kid wasn't running with him, he was too scared to stay. He scrambled towards the exit in the opposite direction of the butcher. Fresh meat. At this moment, the butcher, realizing he had been tricked, ran back. Seeing the guard still escaping, he threw the meat hook in his hand at the target. The butcher, being overweight, had poor mobility. So his equipment, the meat hook, was made from the same material as the hero Eraserhead's bandages, allowing it to change shape. This not only compensated for his lack of mobility but also gave the butcher the ability to pull his prey from a distance. However, things didn't go as expected. The meat hook stopped in midair, missing its target, and the guard had already escaped through the door. I'm here. Don't think you can hurt anyone. Izuku extended his right hand, and the steel wire from his death glove intercepted the meat hook in midair, firmly binding it. Was it you I smelled earlier? The butcher, seeing Midoriya Izuku, realized where the fresh meat smell had come from. Drooling, he said to Izuku, "Because that guy ran away, you'll be my dinner." The butcher pulled the meat hook back. His immense strength dragged Izuku, who was entangled in the steel wire, towards him. In a dangerous situation, Midoriya Izuku immediately used the device on his death glove to cut the extended steel wire. He escaped the danger and quickly ran towards the slaughterhouse conveyor belt. Fresh meat. Don't think you can run. Like a tank, the butcher recklessly chased after Midoriya Izuku. They're catching up. Just as planned and predicted by Midoriya Izuku, the butcher wouldn't let him escape. Now, he had to lure him into the web. To deal with this terrifying enemy, Midoriya Izuku didn't come unprepared. He had made thorough preparations before coming alone. Meat! Meat! Chasing behind Midoriya Izuku, the butcher aimed his meat hook directly at him. The sharp hook targeted Midoriya's back. If it caught him, he wouldn't be able to escape and would be cruelly turned into a tasty dinner by the enemy. However, just like before, Midoriya used his left hand to shoot out steel wires, wrapping around the meat hook and intercepting it in midair. Even if the butcher could manipulate the hook's direction, he couldn't get past the steel wires. As the butcher retrieved the meat hook, Midoriya Izuku cut the steel wires again to avoid being pulled back. At the same time, he ran to the place where he had set up his ambush. In this part of the slaughterhouse assembly line, there were many meat hooks hanging side by side, with dim, scattered bloodstains adding to the eerie and terrifying atmosphere. When the butcher's meat tank chased him here, Midoriya Izuku faced him directly, no longer running away. "Little guy, have you given up? Then obediently become my dinner." The butcher drooled as he looked at Midoriya Izuku, saying terrible things. Midoriya calmly looked at the enemy in front of him and said just one sentence. Steel wire technique, spider web formation. Steel wires shot out from the fixed steel anchors in various corners, and the steel wires from the death gloves also sprayed out, connecting with the steel anchor's wires instantly. Midoriya's formation was complete. Fresh, tasty meat. Midoriya Izuku's actions further fueled the butcher's rampage. He charged directly at Midoriya, his massive body, capable of crushing a person to death. However, Midoriya's formation was already woven. Under his control, steel wires intercepted and formed a defensive net in front of him. Just like when the werewolf threw a car at Midoriya, the fat butcher was bounced back by the steel wire defense net, crashing into a row of iron barrels. The butcher, who hadn't yet gotten up, threw his meat hook at Midoriya again, intending to break through the steel wire defense net with the hook. In mid-air, the meat hook stopped halfway, completely fixed by the steel wires like a spider web. The butcher couldn't retrieve the hook. Now, Midoriya wasn't just relying on his own strength to fight the enemy. The steel wires passed through the meat hooks in the slaughterhouse, and Midoriya used them as pulleys to enhance his strength. The butcher was actually being suppressed by Midoriya. Brat! Unable to retrieve the meat hook, the butcher got angry and shouted at Midoriya, then charged at him again. Binding web. Midoriya activated his move to capture the enemy. Layers of steel wire webs wrapped around the butcher, completely binding the enemy who was charging at Midoriya. With the support of dozens of meat hooks, the butcher was completely immobilized. Is it done? Seeing the butcher tightly bound, Midoriya Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. Facing such a dangerous enemy on his own was quite stressful. After all, he was just a second-year middle school student who should be studying diligently. Kid, I really want to taste your flesh more and more. The butcher stared at Midoriya with a sinister grin, drooling so much that the ground was soaked. In Midoriya's shocked eyes, the enemy began to break free from the steel wires with all his might. The wires had cut deeply into the butcher's flesh, and blood was flowing out. Stop it! You'll seriously hurt yourself. Midoriya Izuku hurriedly shouted to stop the enemy. He knew very well that the thin steel wires could be used as blades in special situations. The butcher was acting recklessly, trying to break free while being tightly bound by the wires. This could result in his flesh being sliced like 1,000 cuts. My quirk. It's not just about eating. The butcher laughed crazily as the steel wires finally snapped, but his body was in a terrible state, looking like it had been shaved by a knife, with blood everywhere. Then, his wounds began to heal quickly. The previously injured flesh instantly recovered, making Midoriya Izuku's eyes widen in horror. Brat, you'll make up for the flesh I lost. The butcher attacked Midoriya Izuku again. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 13. Chapter 13 Stop Talking Nonsense. The butcher, whose wounds healed after breaking free from the steel wires, charged at Midoriya Izuku with great momentum. Although Midoriya Izuku was shocked by the enemy's actions, he didn't freeze and immediately launched a counterattack. The steel wires wrapped around the butcher like a snake, binding him tightly again, but it was useless. The butcher didn't fear the injuries at all, breaking the wires forcefully, even if it meant cutting his flesh. The terrifying wounds quickly healed. Darn it! Midoriya sighed inwardly, realizing the situation was bad. The butcher had broken free from the steel wires twice, and the wire net he had set up was now useless. Only a few wires were left, making the situation dire. He quickly turned and retreated. The traps he had set up couldn't stop the enemy, so he had to run. The butcher's toughness was beyond Midoriya Izuku's expectations. He didn't know the enemy's quirk had this effect. Attacking without knowing the enemy's abilities was a mistake. Brat, I'm going to swallow you whole. The butcher, with a ferocious face, had lost chunks of flesh to break free from Midoriya Izuku's steel wires. The pain made him even more violent, chasing Midoriya with bloodshot eyes. Running towards the slaughterhouse gate, Midoriya's plan was to retreat since the wire traps couldn't stop the enemy. He didn't think he could subdue the butcher without other means. As he was about to reach the gate, a meat hook suddenly attacked from behind. He turned to use the steel wires to intercept the hook but realized the butcher's target wasn't him. Midoriya's moment of hesitation caused him to react slowly. The butcher's hook hit its target, The slaughterhouse gate. The hook caught the iron gate, and the enemy pulled it back, closing the gate tightly. The gate was sealed shut. Brat, don't think you can escape. The butcher roared angrily, running towards Midoriya Izuku after sealing the slaughterhouse gate. He wouldn't let the kid who embarrassed him get away easily. The gate was sealed, and the path to the exit was a straight road for trucks. Midoriya Izuku was now facing the gate with no way out, while the butcher was closing in on him, making the situation extremely dangerous. Despite the danger, Midoriya Izuku remained calm. He still had a plan. Facing the charging butcher, Midoriya did something unexpected and ran straight towards the enemy. Is that brat crazy? The butcher didn't care. He wouldn't miss out on the delicious meal that came to him. In front of Midoriya Izuku, the enemy's stomach opened up into a big mouth, with teeth like a meat grinder that could completely tear apart any prey that fell in. As expected, the enemy's actions were within Izuku's expectations. The butcher's quirk, 2 mouths, meant he was used to eating prey with the mouth on his stomach. With Midoriya's suicidal behavior, the butcher would definitely open the mouth on his stomach and swallow him whole. But this was exactly what Midoriya Izuku planned to use. He reached behind his waist, took out a prepared secret tool, and focused as he rushed towards the butcher. When he got in front of the butcher, the stench from the mouth on the enemy's stomach was overwhelming. Just as he was about to be swallowed, Izuku made an appealing dodge, avoiding the enemy's hands, and threw the items in his hands into the butcher's stomach mouth. Then, with a sliding move, he went under the enemy's legs. Compared to the butcher's huge 2-meter-tall body, Midoriya Izuku's middle school height made him much more agile. Reaching the butcher's back, Midoriya Izuku rolled several times to create distance. He didn't know if his secret tool had worked yet. You brat. You! It seemed to work very well. The butcher in front of Izuku now looked terrible. The mouth on his stomach was twitching, and even yellow stomach acid was coming out. What did you throw into my mouth? The butcher fell to the ground, both mouths vomiting. The sight was so disgusting it could make anyone lose their appetite. Onions, chili, pepper. Midoriya Izuku listed the ingredients. He had forgotten how many things he had put in there. They were all irritating peas, ground into powder and made into something like a tear gas bomb that could explode. Safe, simple, and effective. Midoriya Izuku's homemade prank bomb, called the homestyle bomb. When testing this tool, Midoriya Izuku himself had been choked to tears and snot, feeling awful. Now, throwing it directly into the butcher's stomach and detonating it, the feeling was indescribable. I'll kill you. Brat, I'll kill you. The butcher, with tears and snot flowing, kept vomiting as he struggled to get up and charged at Midoriya Izuku, completely losing his mind. Retreat. The best plan was to run away. The enemy was now completely confused, so escaping was the best option. Without hesitation, Midoriya Izuku turned and ran. The butcher, already slow, was now even more hindered by the homestyle bomb. He could barely see the road, only chasing after Izuku's blurry figure. Go through the small door on the other side. Planning his escape route, Midoriya Izuku prepared to run. Brat, I've remembered your face. Even if you escape, I'll find you and eat you alive. The butcher, unable to catch Midoriya, shouted. As a cruel and bloodthirsty enemy, what do you think would happen if you offended him? Pro heroes don't dare to catch me. I'll find you and eat your whole family. Midoriya Izuku, who was about to escape, slowed down. The butcher's threats made him unable to ignore it. Just a young brat. Seeing Midoriya Izuku stop, the butcher knew his words had worked and spoke even more proudly. Do you know why I became a criminal? Someone offended me and called me a two-mouthed monster. So I went to his house and in front of him, I ate his son and wife. In the end, he also became my meal. Midoriya Izuku lowered his head, hiding his expression. The butcher thought he was scared and threatened loudly. I've remembered your face. If you let me eat you now, your family will be spared. If you run away, I will find you, and you will end up like that man. I will eat your parents alive in front of you. So, you have no regrets at all? Midoriya Izuku's voice was chilling, But the butcher didn't notice and continued proudly. Regret? I only regret not savoring it longer. The taste of that man's fear as he slowly went into my mouth was unforgettable. Is that so? I understand now. Midoriya Izuku finally understood that there was no need to show mercy to such enemies. Steel wire technique. Strangle. Midoriya Izuku swung his right hand and quickly retracted it, making it hard to see what happened. The butcher was stunned, then felt a sharp pain in his right arm. He turned to look. His right arm had fallen to the ground, with a smooth cut on his shoulder, and blood was gushing out. My hand! My hand! Seeing his right arm cut off, the butcher quickly activated his quirk, two mouths, which allowed him to store eaten flesh and bones in his body, increasing his strength and healing wounds. But since it was a whole arm, it was hard to fully recover. As his right arm slowly grew back, he suddenly fell to the ground. A sharp pain came from his thigh, and the butcher looked over in horror. His lower legs had been severed. It's you! Only a fool wouldn't understand now. The butcher looked at Midoriya Izuku in fear, as if seeing a grim reaper. So, your severed hand can grow back? Midoriya Izuku looked down at the butcher on the ground. The once over 2-meter-tall butcher was now lying on the ground, no longer looking fierce and bloodthirsty. With another swing of his right hand, the steel wire quickly shot out and retracted, cutting off the butcher's remaining left arm. The once fierce criminal was now a limbless ball. Stop! Don't kill me! Don't kill me! The once fierce and bloodthirsty butcher was now pathetically begging for mercy, having lost all his limbs and turned into a ridiculous clown. Did you ever spare those who begged you for mercy? Standing in front of the butcher, Midoriya Izuku wanted to use the steel wire to strangle his head. Such a person, if left alive, would only harm others. But Midoriya held back. He wanted to be a hero and had no right to judge criminals. The butcher would have to be punished by the law. Then that's it. I won't kill you. The butcher looked at Midoriya Izuku with some fear, surprised that he was spared. Unable to stand up without his limbs, Midoriya wrapped him in steel wire and dragged him like a ball. If you dare to move, I'll strangle your head right away. After warning the butcher, Midoriya dragged him to the center of the slaughterhouse, where there were many meat hooks. Using steel wires, Midoriya Izuku hung the butcher high up, with all the meat hooks hanging below him. If he accidentally fell, he would be pierced all over by the hooks. Satisfied with his work, Midoriya Izuku clapped his hands and prepared to leave. He left the butcher with these words: "Wait here for the pro-heroes and police. If you try to escape and die, it's not my fault." Packing up the butcher's meat hooks, although heavy, wasn't a problem for Midoriya Izuku, who was stronger than most adults due to his long-term training. Looking back at the butcher hanging high up, who didn't dare to move at all for fear of falling to his death, Midoriya Izuku said, "Disgusting scum, wait for the law to punish you." Will the butcher end up hanging on the meat hooks? You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment 3 comment. Chapter 14. Chapter 14 Too Much. The next morning, at home, while eating breakfast and drinking milk, Midoriya Izuku watched the news on TV. It was about the butcher's capture, and the location shown was the slaughterhouse. Seeing news related to him, Izuku listened carefully. The news reported that yesterday, pro-heroes and police rushed to the slaughterhouse after receiving a report from a panicked security guard who had escaped. When they arrived, they found blood and scattered limbs everywhere. Following the blood trail, the police and heroes found the butcher, who had been turned into a human stick and hung in the air. He was so scared of falling onto the hooks that he didn't dare to move. Later, the security guard explained that a middle school student had saved him. The police concluded from the steel wires left at the scene that the person who defeated the butcher was the black-haired boy who had recently been helping others. The reporter praised the boy's courage, but the police and heroes added, "We hope that in the future, if someone encounters such a situation, they will notify the police and heroes instead of putting themselves in danger." Midoriya Izuku reflected on his actions. He realized he had been impulsive. What if the enemy had been too strong for him? And just like the butcher's threats, Izuku didn't want his actions to put his mom in danger. Izuku, you're going to be late. Hearing his mom, Midoriya Inko, Izuku hurriedly grabbed his sandwich and ran out the door. The weekend was over, and Midoriya returned to school life. 5 minutes before the bell rang, Izuku made it to class on time. After the first class, during the break, the boys and girls gathered in groups to chat, while Midoriya, who usually had no friends, sat alone listening to their gossip. Have you heard about the recent famous one? Oh, you mean that one? A few boys were talking about a hot topic. Midoriya Izuku, listening in, was curious. He had been busy gathering information on the butcher and didn't know about any recent popular events. A middle school student suddenly appeared and defeated enemies. Yesterday, he even turned the butcher, who escaped from pro heroes, into a human stick. It's so scary. Midoriya Izuku turned his face away. They were talking about him. Turning the butcher into a human stick was indeed too much. Izuku was shocked that he had done such a thing. But thinking back, the butcher deserved it for threatening him. Not finishing him off on the spot was already merciful. They say that middle school students' quirk is something like steel wire, similar to Spider-Man, able to weave big webs. And he first appeared in our city. Do you think he might be someone from around here? Not just nearby. He's right next to you. Midoriya just kept these thoughts to himself. He didn't dare to spread this around, especially after being threatened by the butcher yesterday. He realized how dangerous his actions were. If someone found out his true identity, it could bring danger to his home. Midoriya didn't want his mom to get hurt. What's the big deal? If it were me, I could blow the enemy away with one punch. Hearing his classmates talk about the recent popular figure, Bakugo Katsuki couldn't help but butt in. The classmates quickly agreed, while Midoriya Izuku lowered his face a bit. In a way, Midoriya had caught Bakugo's attention again. In the slaughterhouse, besides arresting the butcher, there were professional heroes helping the police investigate the scene. After all, the butcher was defeated by a middle school student, and the condition of the limbs left at the scene was brutal. When the police rescued the butcher, who had turned into a human stick, from the steel wire net, he was so scared that he was out of his mind and couldn't be interrogated about what happened. The next day, the police invited a professional hero who was very good at analyzing such scenes to come and take a look, hoping to get a rough idea of what happened. The professional hero, Eraserhead, whose quirk was to erase others' quirks, had a combat style of erasing the enemy's quirk and then capturing them up close. His fighting style was similar to a Japanese ninja, skilled in close combat and using tools, so the police invited him to the scene. With bandages wrapped around his neck, Eraserhead looked around the scene, picked up the butcher's severed limbs to examine the cuts, then checked the broken steel wires and the butcher's flesh at the center of the slaughterhouse. After inspecting the entire scene, he came to a conclusion. The kid probably wanted to capture the enemy without hurting him, setting up a steel wire trap at the center of the slaughterhouse, similar to Spider-Man's technique. But the plan failed, and the butcher broke the steel wires by force. Eraserhead explained, pointing to the pieces of flesh on the ground, which were cut from the butcher when he broke the steel wires. While recording Eraserhead's analysis, a police officer asked, "How did the butcher get cut into a human stick?" I looked at the cuts on the limbs, and both the bones and flesh are very smooth, like they were cut by a laser. Eraserhead was a bit speechless at the question and asked back, "Did you just graduate from police school?" "Yes." The young police officer didn't understand, so Eraserhead explained, any slightly experienced police officer could tell from the scene that the butcher was cut into this shape by steel wires. "Is that so?" The young police officer quickly recorded the information. Eraserhead didn't say much more and carefully observed everything at the scene, slowly explaining. The kid probably didn't intend to use such force. "Hey, how do you know?" The young police officer was puzzled, thinking that Eraserhead's quirk might actually be seeing the past. Eraserhead pointed to the slaughterhouse gate, where the handle was slightly deformed, likely from the butcher pulling it with a meat hook. The butcher's weapon wasn't found at the scene, so the kid probably took it. Pointing to where the butcher fell, Eraserhead deduced that the steel wires were broken, and the butcher chased the kid to the gate, sealing it with a meat hook. From the vomit and residue left at the scene, the kid probably threw something irritating into the butcher's mouth, temporarily disabling him. Trying to recreate the scene, Eraserhead led the young police officer to where Midoriya had stood. I also use a weapon similar to steel wire. From this position, I cut off the butcher's hands and feet. This spot is not close to where the butcher fell, so he could have easily escaped. Considering all the details at the scene, Eraserhead quickly analyzed. This kid has the ability to turn the butcher into a human stick. He could have dealt with the enemy from the start. But from the traces left, it seems he wanted to capture the enemy. When his plan failed, he prepared to escape. He's a kind kid. Eraserhead sighed. It's rare these days to see someone hold back against a villain as evil as the butcher. But why did he turn the butcher into a human stick later? That JRK must have said something to provoke the kid. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 15. Chapter 15. The Steel Wire Death God. During this time, Midoriya Izuku has completely disappeared from the public eye. The Butcher incident brought him a lot of attention, so to avoid his true identity being discovered, he has been very careful and stayed out of trouble. He is also waiting for good news from Hatsum Mei. When he brought the butcher's meat hook to Hatsum Mei, the genius inventor girl was very surprised. She didn't expect Midoriya Izuku to actually get such materials, or rather, to rob the enemy. Hatsum Mei was impressed by Midoriya's determination and quickly started working on modifying his equipment. Besides waiting for news from Hatsum Mei, Midoriya Izuku has also been following the news. He knows he went a bit too far with his actions, and recently, the news has been full of reports about the Butcher incident. Even his mom mentioned it. It's a bit of a headache. Midoriya has been having some headaches recently because of the series of things he did. It led to a situation where he was suddenly admired by people, and not just anyone, but his classmates. Using extremely cruel methods to defeat the Butcher, the news media reported it widely, and it quickly became a hot topic among students. Probably because he was the same age as them, defeating an enemy resonated more than distant professional heroes. Even though it was quite bloody, it attracted even more attention from the students. Rumors about him were all over the internet, and Midoriya didn't dare to show his face because of this. If his true identity was revealed, it would be a disaster. Midoriya also knew that Bakugo Katsuki had been in a bad mood recently because the Steel Wire Death God had suddenly gained everyone's attention. His classmates who didn't like Bakugo used it to compare and belittle him. As for the Steel Wire Death God. Yes, you heard it right. Midoriya Izuku was stunned when he heard this name. When did he get such a deadly nickname? It sounded like the name of a villain, making the aspiring hero Midoriya feel very uneasy. The nickname Steel Wire Death God spread online because no one knew the true identity of the brave middle school student. Since Midoriya's fighting style always involved steel wires, and because of the Butcher incident, where he cut the Butcher into pieces, netizens gave him the affectionate nickname, Steel Wire Death God. Midoriya Izuku wanted to flip the table. What kind of nickname was this? It sounded like a villain's name, completely off the mark. Even though he wanted to deny it, Midoriya didn't dare to stand up. So, the nickname Steel Wire Death God spread wider and wider. Now, anyone who knew about the Butcher incident would confidently tell you that it was the Steel Wire Death God who defeated the Butcher. Midoriya Izuku planned to lay low until the Butcher incident completely cooled down. As time passed, people would probably forget, and the nickname Steel Wire Death God would be forgotten too, right? On the weekend, at the secret base in the seaside park. When Midoriya Izuku turned on the communication device, Hatsum Mei greeted him immediately. Steel Wire Death God, long time no see. Hatsum Mei. Seeing Midoriya's reaction, Hatsum Mei covered her mouth and laughed. She usually teased this boy to add some fun to her life. But jokes aside, Hatsum Mei quickly got to the point. She picked up the item in her hand. I've made part of the steel wire. This material is really hard to modify. To keep the shape-changing function of the material, it needed special treatment. Even after a long time of forging, Hatsune had only produced a part of the steel wire. Thank you. But this part is enough. Midoriya Izuku was very grateful to Hatsune. He didn't need to fight right now. He just needed some steel wire to train with. He had to quickly master the use of this new steel wire. Izuku's goal was still the same: to do everything he could to become a hero. Izuku, why are your fingers always cut recently? Izuku's mom, Midoriya Inko, was very worried. Her child's fingers were covered with band-aids. At first, she didn't notice, but later she found that the cuts on Izuku's hands were not healing and were even increasing. Midoriya Izuku looked at his fingers. To adapt to the shape-changing ability of the new steel wire, he often cut himself during training. The long-term injuries had made his mom suspicious, but Izuku had already thought of an excuse. He wouldn't tell his mom the truth, but he wouldn't lie completely either. Recently, there's that amazing steel wire death god, right? I heard he's also a middle school student, and his quirk is just steel wire. I think I can do it too. Mom Midoriya Inko turned her head with some difficulty. She just reminded Izuku to be careful and didn't say much more. Sorry, Mom. Although his words were half true, this act of deceiving his mom made Izuku feel a bit guilty. But if his mom Midoriya Inko knew the truth, all his plans would be ruined. Time passed quickly, and soon it was the end of the second year of middle school. Next year, Midoriya Izuku would enter the crucial third year. One more year. Izuku clenched his fist. The scars on his hands were increasing. The new steel wire was very hard to master, unlike the butcher's simple control of a single meat hook. Controlling multiple steel wires made the difficulty increase geometrically, and Izuku didn't use the death glove for protection. He only had one piece of equipment, which Hatsune had made with great effort. Midoriya Izuku didn't want his most precious item to be damaged by the steel wire, so he had to rely on his own flesh and blood to learn. After the final exams, Midoriya Izuku still ranked first in all subjects. This time, Bakugo didn't bother him because the newly emerged steel wire death god had taken all the hatred away from Izuku, even though it was still him. During the holidays, Midoriya Izuku continued to train hard. Time flew by, and the third semester arrived. At school, while checking the students' future plans, Midoriya Izuku looked at his form. Then, without hesitation, he wrote down his future goal. UA High School. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my Patreon.com Gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 16. Chapter 16. A New Beginning. In the new semester, Midoriya Izuku, who has been keeping a low profile, encountered an unexpected incident on his way to school. It wasn't that he ran into an enemy himself, but he came across a battle between a professional hero and an enemy. Kamui Woods was fighting a giant enemy, and Midoriya was excited to watch. Kamui Woods, a recently popular professional hero, was one of his favorite heroes because he used his wood quirk to bind enemies, which provided Midoriya with a lot of combat experience. Just as Kamui Woods was about to use his special move to bind the enemy, a much larger female hero suddenly kicked the enemy, taking him down in one blow. I'm the new hero, Mount Lady. At the same time, a large group of reporters started taking pictures like crazy, making Midoriya a bit embarrassed. Seeing that the situation was over, he quickly ran to school. It wouldn't be good to be late because he was watching the excitement. Today, Midoriya Izuku's luck might not be so good. After a rare PRD of peace, Bakugo found him again. UA High School, the place where only the best of the best in Japan can enroll. When the teacher read out the students' future aspirations, besides Bakugo Katsuki choosing UA High School, Midoriya Izuku also chose UA High School. When the teacher read it out, the whole class burst into laughter. After class, Bakugo maliciously approached him. Hey Deku, what makes you think you can stand on the same stage as me? You, a quirkless person, still dreaming of becoming a hero. Bakugo's arrogant and harsh taunt didn't anger Midoriya. He just replied, I'm going to the support course, is that not okay? Bakugo was instantly speechless. He wanted to say something but couldn't. Midoriya Izuku said he was going to take the support course exam? Bakugo knew very well that Midoriya had always dreamed of becoming a hero. Now he was giving up so easily. Feeling a bit confused, Bakugo returned to his seat to think about what Midoriya's words meant. I only said I was going to the support course, not that I didn't want to become a hero. Midoriya kept this thought to himself. During this time, he had carefully researched UA High School's rules and knew that no matter how good his grades were, without a quirk, he wouldn't be accepted into the hero course. But that didn't mean he had completely given up. He would take both the hero course and support course exams. Since they were entirely different subjects, the exam projects were also different. But no matter what, he had to give it a try. Even if he failed, it didn't matter. At least he would have tried his best. In Japan, school usually ends early, so Midoriya Izuku, a member of the Go Home Club, went to his usual spot, the seaside park. Midoriya-chan, why are you thinking of going out again? In the secret base, Hatsune asked through the communication device, while Midoriya Izuku was dyeing his green hair black. That's right, Midoriya Izuku was going to act as the Steel Wire Death God, again, even though he denied this title himself. I need real combat experience. Looking at the scars on his hands that were gradually healing, Izuku had mastered the use of the new steel wire after long training and no longer cut his fingers, but it still wasn't enough. Lacking real combat experience, enemies wouldn't just stand still like targets. He needed real battles to understand his weaknesses. After being quiet for half a semester, Midoriya Izuku decided to take action again. Of course, he had to be careful. This time, Midoriya Izuku not only dyed his hair black but also used styling gel to change his hairstyle completely. He even wrapped a gray scarf around his neck to cover his face as much as possible. How do I look? Midoriya Izuku stood in front of the video device, asking Hatsune to comment on his disguise. Who are you? I don't recognize you at all. After taking a picture of himself with his phone, Izuku was very satisfied with the photo. Great, this will do. Now, even if he stood in front of his mom, Midoriya Inko, she wouldn't recognize him. The disguise was a success. But Midoriya-chan, what if someone asks your name? Hatsune mentioned that the rumors about the Steel Wire Death God hadn't faded yet. If Izuku went out to cause trouble now, he would definitely be recognized and asked for his name. I'll deal with that when it happens. Izuku hadn't really thought about this. His style was to finish the job and leave, not staying around for people to see. You really are. Midoriya Izuku set off, the Steel Wire Death God, in action. Wait, this isn't a joke, right? All Might is here. Excitedly looking at the news on his phone, Midoriya Izuku saw that All Might seemed to have come to his city. This was huge news. On the street, Izuku's reaction naturally drew attention from passers-by, but when they heard about All Might's arrival, they lost interest. Midoriya Izuku was a bit excited. All Might's news had already spread throughout the city. Izuku had been in class and then busy with his disguise, so he hadn't paid attention to the news. Now, his reaction was just like any All Might fan. I really want to see All Might. I really want to see All Might. Muttering to himself again, Midoriya Izuku's original plan was to go to the neighboring city to find those two small-time crooks, the strong guy and the rat guy, to practice. Their low skill level made them perfect for practice without danger, but now his plan was disrupted. The news of All Might's arrival was everywhere, and Midoriya Izuku didn't want to miss the chance to meet his most admired hero. So he decided, go see All Might. Even if it was just a glance, Midoriya Izuku wanted to see All Might. But now a new problem arose. Where will All Might be? The news said that All Might was seen subduing enemies in the city center and showed footage taken with a phone, but no one actually knew where All Might was. Without a clear goal, Midoriya felt it was hard to proceed. The city was quite large, and wandering around aimlessly to bump into All Might was too unlikely. Not having a direction was really troublesome. After wandering around a few places, Midoriya Izuku saw people talking about All Might's arrival, but he didn't see him anywhere. Midoriya sighed, thinking that All Might have already left. As the #1 hero, All Might had many things to handle every day and probably wouldn't stay in one city for too long. Midoriya sighed again, feeling disappointed that he didn't get to see All Might. With a heavy heart, Midoriya Izuku was passing under a bridge when suddenly a sewer cover opened and a mass of sludge lunged at his back. However, it missed. Thanks to his long-term training, Midoriya's senses were sharp and his reactions were quick. Having fought dangerous enemies before, his combat skills were far beyond those of ordinary people. After rolling to dodge the sludge, Midoriya quickly turned to face the thing that attacked him. An enemy? In front of him was a mass of constantly writhing and changing sludge. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 17. Chapter 17. All Might arrives. An enemy? Seeing the large mass of writhing sludge suddenly attacking him, Midoriya Izuku became instantly alert. As he retreated to create distance, he aimed the steel wires from his Reaper gloves at the sludge and shot them out to wrap around it. But unexpectedly, the enemy, sludge, was made of fluid, and the steel wires went right through it, having no effect. Kid, you look surprisingly familiar. The sludge looked at the black-haired Midoriya Izuku with interest. Wasn't there a lot of news about a middle school student with black hair and steel wires recently? Kid, you're the famous steel wire death god. I didn't expect that, Butcher, to fall at the hands of a kid like you. As the sludge spoke, its fluid tentacles lunged at Midoriya, but he had already prepared and used the steel wires to pull himself to the bridge, dodging the attack. Kid, I like you. How about merging with me? Your quirk would be great for killing. The sludge didn't give up and surged towards Midoriya Izuku, its fluid tentacles attacking him continuously. Midoriya didn't say a word, focusing on dodging the sludge's attacks. As for counterattacking, that wasn't possible at all. I've encountered the toughest enemy. Midoriya thought to himself, realizing the situation was bad. He had anticipated facing enemies immune to physical attacks, but he didn't expect to encounter one so soon. Against an enemy with a fluid quirk like the sludge, Midoriya Izuku was completely helpless. The steel wires cut through it but had no effect. Run! At this moment, the only thing Midoriya could think of was to escape, and he immediately acted on it. Extending the steel wires further, he wrapped them around a streetlight and like Spider-Man, flew off the ground. However, he quickly stopped. Midoriya looked back in a hurry and saw the sludge's tentacles wrapped around his foot, pulling him back. The enemy's sludge body was coming to envelop him. It's over! As Midoriya Izuku closed his eyes, accepting his fate, he suddenly heard a very familiar voice in his ear. A hero always shows up at the crucial moment. Held by strong hands, the mud monster's tentacles were torn apart, and Izuku was carried to the other side. When he opened his eyes, he saw the hero he admired. All Might? Putting the trembling Midoriya Izuku down, All Might's tall and strong figure stood with his back to him, looking at Izuku with his iconic smile. It's all right now. Because I am here. Covering his chest with his hands, Midoriya Izuku felt like he was going to die of happiness. He couldn't believe he met his idol, All Might, and was saved by him. Today must be his lucky day. All Might, the enemy is immune to physical attacks. Now wasn't the time to be lost in dreams. Izuku quickly reminded the number 1 hero. The steel wire had no effect on the mud monster, and All Might was also a physical fighter. He needed to be informed. Don't worry. An expert can handle any enemy. As All Might gave a thumbs up to Izuku, the mud monster lunged at All Might, shouting, All Might, you followed me here. Under Izuku's worried gaze, All Might kept his iconic smile and faced the enemy. He clenched his right fist and swung it. Detroit Smash. A storm appeared. The destructive wind from All Might's punch shattered the mud monster. Izuku couldn't even open his eyes. When the wind calmed down, he opened his eyes to see. The mud monster was broken into pieces on the ground. Midoriya's jaw almost dropped. This is All Might's power, it's amazing. No matter how many videos he watched or articles he read, nothing compared to experiencing it in person. The mud monster, which Izuku thought was immune to physical attacks, was blown to pieces by just the wind from All Might's punch. All Might. As Midoriya Izuku nervously didn't know what to say to his idol, the number one hero started his work. He emptied a large soda bottle from his briefs pocket and began stuffing the mud pieces into it. I'll help too. Seeing All Might at work, Izuku didn't just stand there. He ran over to help All Might, picking up the mud pieces and stuffing them into the soda bottle. With an extra person helping, the scattered mud monster was quickly trapped in the bottle. Amazing! Looking at the soda bottle, the mud monster was still struggling inside. A small soda bottle had captured the enemy that steel wire couldn't affect. Midoriya Izuku couldn't believe there were people with such quirks, completely non-human in physiology. But thinking about the butcher he defeated, that person was similar, with a mouth on his stomach and no other human organs visible. Well done, young man. After capturing the mud monster, All Might praised Midoriya Izuku. Enthusiastic kids deserved praise. All Might. Awkwardly, Midoriya Izuku didn't know what to ask. If it were before, he would have asked All Might if someone without a quirk could become a hero. But now that question no longer troubled him. Izuku decided that even without a quirk, he would still strive to become a hero. Young man, are you the one who defeated the butcher? Oh, Midoriya Izuku was completely confused. How did he get recognized? All Might seemed to know what Midoriya was thinking and pointed to the Reaper gloves on his hands, saying, I saw you using steel wires just now. Black hair, steel wires, middle school student? It must be you, right? Caught red-handed, Midoriya Izuku nodded and answered All Might. Yes, it was me. Just when he thought he would be scolded by the number one hero, All Might patted his head and praised him. Well done. You stepped up to save someone, right? I saw the news reports too. Midoriya Izuku felt excited by All Might's praise, but then he was immediately criticized. But you were too harsh in your fight with the butcher. Cutting off the enemy's limbs is not a hero's behavior, and actively seeking out enemies to fight is very dangerous. All Might's continuous teaching made Midoriya lower his head in shame. He knew he was wrong in this aspect, and being pointed out by his idol made him feel very embarrassed. All in all, you're a good kid. Can you tell me your name? Midoriya Izuku was surprised that All Might asked for his name. This was. What's wrong? Don't you want to tell me? How could that be? This was such an honor. Midoriya Izuku was excited and wanted to tell All Might his name, but the words got stuck. He was in disguise now, looking completely different from his real appearance. If he told All Might his real name, Midoriya Izuku. But if All Might checked later and found out he looked different, would he think Midoriya was lying? And if he told All Might everything and others found out, reporters wanting to interview the Steel Wire Reaper might come to his house. If his mom, Midoriya Inko, found out about all the things he had been hiding, she would be heartbroken. So, this is it. Seeing All Might still waiting for his answer, Midoriya Izuku told him his name. My name is Akaya Kaien. I'll remember that, Akaya. All Might gave him a thumbs up and then jumped into the air like a rocket, disappearing from Midoriya's sight in an instant. All Might is gone. Midoriya Izuku felt a bit down. He hadn't been able to talk much with his idol. He also felt a bit guilty for giving a fake name. But it wasn't exactly a lie. Just like Hatsume had told him, he needed a name for his disguised identity. Midoriya Izuku's new identity. The Steel Wire Death God, Akaya Kaien. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my Patreon.com Gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 18. Chapter 18. The Sludge Kidnapping Incident. Walking home, Midoriya Izuku happily held his phone, posting online about meeting All Might. A lot of people want to see All Might. As the number one hero, All Might. He was called the symbol of peace, and was a beloved hero in Japan. He often did hero work in various cities and even other countries. Being able to see him in person was very lucky. Thinking that good things shouldn't be kept to himself, Midoriya Izuku posted about All Might being in his city, hoping more people could see his idol. But Izuku still felt a bit awkward because he didn't give All Might his real name, but used his disguised name Akaya Kaien. It's okay. Clenching his fist to cheer himself up, Midoriya Izuku muttered to himself. In the future, I'll tell All Might as Midoriya Izuku when I become a hero. Just as Izuku made up his mind, he suddenly heard explosions and saw fire and black smoke not far away. A villain attack? Thinking of the first time he encountered the werewolf, where the enemy caused chaos in public, Izuku felt he couldn't just sit by and do nothing. He immediately ran towards the location. When Midoriya Izuku arrived, there were already many people gathered in a line, blocking his view. The crowd was packed tightly, and Izuku couldn't squeeze through. Boom! Boom! He could hear the familiar sound of explosions from inside, but his middle school height made it impossible to see what was happening, which made him anxious. As Midoriya Izuku tried to find a way to see through the crowd, someone suddenly placed a hand on his shoulder. Turning around, Izuku saw a very thin, sickly-looking man with the same blonde hair color as All Might. He was wearing a white shirt, the same style Izuku had seen All Might wearing not long ago. This strange-looking man had his hand on Midoriya's shoulder, making Izuku curiously ask, "Can I help you with something?" "Oh, you want to know what's happening inside, right?" Hearing the blonde man's kind inquiry, Midoriya nodded. His height and the crowd blocking the way made it impossible for him to see inside. Actually, it's a mud monster wrapping around a student, causing a lot of destruction. Mud? Midoriya Izuku was shocked. Wasn't this the same enemy that attacked him not long ago and was shattered into pieces by All Might and put into a soda bottle? Didn't All Might defeat that mud monster? The unusual situation made Izuku blurt out his thoughts. Maybe All Might was careless and let the enemy escape. Hearing Midoriya's surprised words, the blonde man replied nervously, as if it was his fault. Impossible, the enemy must have used some trick, forcing All Might to let him escape. In his fanatical mode, Midoriya Izuku's mind started to run wild, not considering that the mud monster was trapped in a soda bottle and unable to move. He didn't notice the thin blonde man wiping cold sweat from his forehead. Unforgivable. Midoriya Izuku's cold words, filled with killing intent, startled the blonde man beside him, who had no idea what was happening. You said the sludge wrapped around a student. It must have taken advantage of All Might's distraction to kidnap a hostage. The enemy is really sneaky. The blonde man couldn't close his mouth. He saw Midoriya Izuku instantly come up with a whole scenario in his mind, then look angry and cold, saying, "The sludge wants to use this method to get back at All Might, damaging his reputation and hurting others. The enemy is truly evil." Calm down. There are other professional heroes inside. Now that the sludge has kidnapped a student, there's no way to act. Seeing Midoriya Izuku's actions, the blonde man quickly tried to stop him. He was afraid this kid would do something dangerous in his anger. "Don't worry, I'm very calm. That's why I need to step in now." Midoriya Izuku clenched his fist, looking at the Reaper gloves on his hands. There was no one more suitable to rescue the hostage than him. All Might said not long ago, experts are skilled at fighting any enemy. Remembering what All Might had said to him not long ago, Midoriya recorded it as one of his motivational quotes and confidently said, "This time, I'll hit the enemy's weak spot." As soon as he finished speaking, the steel wires from Midoriya's Reaper gloves shot out, wrapping around a building window on the side of the street, pulling him off the ground. The blonde man was left muttering to himself, "I remember. Akaya Kain, right? As someone this kid looks up to, I'm really ashamed." From the building window, Midoriya Izuku's view widened. He could see the sludge enemy causing havoc in the center of the street, with professional heroes like Mount Lady and Kamui Woods nearby, trying not to harm the hostage. When Midoriya focused on the hostage wrapped in sludge, he was surprised. The hostage was someone he knew, his classmate Bakugo Katsuki. No wonder the explosion sounds were so familiar. It really was someone he knew. But this wasn't the time to be surprised. Midoriya Izuku quickly calculated how to rescue Bakugo. "Kid, it's dangerous here, leave now." Midoriya's actions naturally caught the attention of the professional heroes. Kamui Woods immediately warned him. If the enemy hurt him, it would be bad. "This will work." Having calculated everything, Midoriya Izuku didn't respond to the professional hero. He pulled up his scarf to cover half his face, then, action! The steel wires from his right hand shot out, wrapping around Bakugo Katsuki, who was held hostage by the sludge. The wires were very discreet, so the enemy didn't notice. After successfully wrapping the steel wires around Bakugo, Midoriya pulled hard with his right hand. Bakugo's body was mostly pulled out of the sludge, but the sludge still clung tightly to him. When the enemy realized someone was trying to rescue his hostage, he saw Midoriya Izuku. "It's you again, Steel Wire Kid. Don't think you can take my prey," the sludge enemy shouted, tightening his grip on Bakugo. Unless it was All Might with his storm-causing punch, there was no way to rescue the hostage. Steel Wire? Is it the Steel Wire Death God? Is it that active kid from not long ago? I can't believe we see him here. Truly a young hero. After the mud monster called out Midoriya Izuku's identity, the pro-heroes and onlookers praised him, but Midoriya was busy saving people and didn't care about what others thought of him. The steel wire pulled Bakugo's body out a bit, but the mud was about to swallow him again. Midoriya Izuku didn't panic. He had already guessed that the steel wire couldn't directly pull Bakugo out. But Midoriya still had his left hand free and was ready for the next move. With all his strength, he swung his left hand, wrapping and throwing a large concrete block from the ground at the mud monster. Steel wire technique, throw. Midoriya Izuku's long-term strength training allowed him to move heavy objects like large concrete blocks, even if he couldn't pull something as heavy as a truck. After seeing All Might defeat the mud monster, Midoriya understood that the mud monster's fluid nature made it immune to sharp cutting attacks, similar to water. But water can be splashed by a big rock. Bakugo was pulled out of the mud by Midoriya Izuku's right-hand steel wire, while the large concrete block thrown by his left-hand steel wire hit the mud monster's body. Like a rock thrown into water, the mud monster's body splashed everywhere, and the tentacles entangling Bakugo were affected and retracted. At the same time, Midoriya seized the opportunity and pulled Bakugo completely out of the mud monster's body with a strong tug of his right hand. Great! Successfully rescuing Bakugo, the pro-heroes and onlookers cheered in unison, but Izuku didn't let his guard down. The mud monster wasn't defeated yet. Diminute. Rescued by Midoriya Izuku, Bakugo Katsuki kept cursing in frustration. Being kidnapped and used as a hostage was a great humiliation for him. Good, now that the hostage is rescued, leave the rest to us. As the pro-heroes prepared to take over and defeat the enemy, Midoriya Izuku lowered his voice to avoid being recognized and quickly said, "The mud monster is immune to physical attacks. My steel wire has no effect on him. Kamui Woods and Death Arms, your attacks won't work either." Midoriya Izuku's words were acknowledged by the two pro-heroes. Their previous feints had no effect on the enemy. This type of quirk was really troublesome. Everyone turned their eyes to another pro-hero, and Midoriya suggested, "Mount Lady, can you crush the mud monster into pieces? He won't die." "No way." To Midoriya's surprise, Mount Lady refused decisively. She said with disgust, "Being entangled by such a dirty enemy would ruin my reputation as a woman." That's a hard reason to argue with. Midoriya Izuku felt awkward, and Kamui Woods and Death Arms covered their faces in embarrassment, admitting they were from the same agency and feeling ashamed of Mount Lady's words. "Demon Steel Wire Brat, you're as annoying as All Might." The scattered sludge quickly reformed into one mass and, while shouting, surged towards Midoriya Izuku. Midoriya used his steel wires to pull himself away from the spot, also dragging the angry Bakugo Katsuki along to prevent him from being captured again. Seeing Bakugo's pride hurt and feeling ashamed, Midoriya Izuku suddenly made a suggestion, lowering his voice to avoid being recognized by Bakugo. "My name is Akaya Kayan. My steel wires don't work on the sludge enemy. I saw your quirk just now. It seems to be explosions, right?" "What do you mean?" Even though Bakugo was saved by Midoriya Izuku, he was still a bit awkward and didn't thank his savior properly. "I'll use my steel wires to hold you. Use your explosions to blow up the sludge. Only you can do it now." "Of course, You can choose to refuse. No. I agree. Understanding what the person in front of him meant, Bakugo had a fierce smile on his face. Being kidnapped by the sludge was a great humiliation for him, and now he wouldn't miss the chance to redeem himself. Then let's do it. Without further ado, Midoriya Izuku wrapped the steel wires around Bakugo's limbs and body, then threw him forcefully in front of the sludge enemy. With a fierce smile, Bakugo immediately launched his most powerful explosion at the enemy. Boom! The deafening explosion showed that Bakugo didn't hold back against the enemy who embarrassed him. He used all his strength in the blast. At the same time, the sludge enemy wouldn't just let himself be attacked. He immediately counterattacked, with sludge tentacles sweeping towards Bakugo. But just as the tentacles were about to capture Bakugo, Midoriya pulled him back, getting him out of the tentacles' reach. Bakugo's explosion created a large cloud of black smoke, blocking the view. At this moment, Midoriya couldn't see the enemy's condition, so he pulled Bakugo back to his side. When the smoke cleared, a large chunk of the sludge's body was missing. Demon brats, I'll kill you! The completely enraged sludge surged towards Midoriya and Bakugo, but it was in vain. With the high mobility provided by the steel wires, Midoriya Izuku used one hand to wrap the wires around other points to pull himself, while the other hand's wires wrapped around Bakugo to move him as well. The sludge enemy could only flail uselessly. In the face of Midoriya Izuku's mobility, catching up was impossible. Amazing! The professional heroes and onlookers watched as the two middle school students seemed to toy with the sludge enemy. When the sludge tried to catch them, Midoriya's steel wires would reposition them, and with Bakugo's continuous explosions, the sludge was reduced to a small piece. Akaya! The blonde man blushed, admitting that he was Midoriya Izuku's most admired hero, All Might. Due to a severe injury from fighting a strong enemy years ago, All Might had his stomach removed and could only maintain his quirk state for 3 hours a day to do hero work. With little time left in his quirk state, All Might hurried to hand the enemy over to the police, only to find that the soda bottle in his pocket was missing. He immediately turned back to search for the enemy. But unfortunately, his quirk time had run out. Die, you bstd. Once again pulled by Midoriya's steel wire, Bakugo's full-power explosion completely destroyed the mud monster into pieces. Now, the ground was covered with mud wriggling like slugs, trying to come together. Is it done? The pro heroes and onlookers saw Midoriya Izuku pulling Bakugo and continuously exploding, completely blowing the mud monster into pieces. Now, it was finally over. After everything ended, Bakugo's feelings of humiliation finally calmed down. At least he had blown that mud JRK into pieces himself. At the same time, Bakugo felt a bit awkward. He wanted to thank the steel wire death god, the guy named Akaya Kayan. Without his help, this embarrassing incident would have been remembered for life. As Bakugo hesitated on how to express his thanks, the onlookers, waiting reporters, and even pro heroes rushed towards them, wanting to meet the steel wire death god. Hey, you can trap the mud monster in a soda bottle. I'm leaving now. Seeing the crowd rushing towards him, Midoriya Izuku was startled. He immediately used his steel wire to wrap around a high place, mimicking Spider-Man, to escape, while leaving instructions on how to trap the mud monster. He's gone. People who wanted to see the true face of the steel wire death god were disappointed, but they quickly turned their attention to Bakugo, starting to show concern. After all, his bravery was witnessed by everyone. Akaya Kain, I'll thank him next time. Bakugo thought to himself, not knowing when they would meet again. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 19. Chapter 19. Working is impossible. The next day, when Midoriya Izuku went to school, he saw his classmates surrounding Bakugo, talking excitedly. That's amazing, Bakugo. I saw it on TV. You blew that mud monster to pieces in no time. And the one pulling you with the steel wire was the steel wire death god, right? Did you see what he looked like? Yesterday, Bakugo was kidnapped and used as a hostage by the mud monster. After Midoriya rescued him, they worked together to completely defeat the mud monster. However, Izuku had disguised his appearance and said his name was Akaya Kaien. The pro-heroes were there, and some onlookers recorded the scene on their phones, later giving it to reporters who broadcasted it on the news. Midoriya, seeing the situation was bad, left quickly, while Bakugo was surrounded by reporters for interviews. Now, Bakugo had become a celebrity, especially for teaming up with the Steel Wire Death God to defeat the Mud Monster, which was a hot topic. At school, Bakugo was surrounded by classmates chatting and gossiping, while Midoriya Izuku sat quietly in his seat. At times like this, he acted as if nothing had happened, making sure his hidden identity wasn't exposed. "You're so annoying. Get lost." It felt like a swarm of flies buzzing around his ears. Bakugo Katsuki finally couldn't hold back his anger and chased everyone around him away. At that moment, Bakugo's eyes met Midoriya's. Deku and Akaya Kaien look a bit alike? This thought crossed Bakugo's mind, but he quickly dismissed it. How could it be? Bakugo had known Midoriya Izuku since they were kids. He was just a quirkless nobody who didn't even dare to talk back to him. Besides, Bakugo had just learned yesterday that the Steel Wire Death God was named Akaya Kaien and had a similar steel wire quirk. Midoriya, feeling guilty, lowered his face. Normally, this was a typical reaction, but now he was afraid Bakugo would recognize him. After all, they had grown up together, and besides his mom, Midoriya Inko, the person who knew him best was Bakugo Katsuki. But Bakugo quickly turned to chat with other classmates, not connecting Akaya Kaien with Midoriya Izuku, or maybe he just never thought of it. Midoriya Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. He was really scared that if Bakugo found out his true identity, he might go crazy. No joke. Knowing Bakugo's pride, this would definitely happen. At the seaside park, Midoriya Izuku had just changed into his disguise. The reason he changed into Akaya Kaien again was because he heard complaints from the supermarket staff near his home. Recently, 2 robbers had been targeting cash registers in the area, and many supermarkets had been hit. He was worried that the supermarket where he worked might be next. Midoriya went to the supermarket to find out more. It was said that these 2 were repeat offenders, always causing small troubles. Not only was there no reward for catching them, but they were also very slippery. Even enthusiastic professional heroes couldn't catch them. The more Midoriya listened, the more familiar it sounded. He remembered the strong man and the rat man who had repeatedly fallen into his hands in the neighboring city. Could it be them? So, Midoriya Izuku changed into his Steel Wire Death God disguise and went out to look for the troublemakers. Since he lived in the city, Midoriya was very familiar with the streets. He headed towards the less crowded areas, hoping to get lucky. While passing a street, Midoriya suddenly heard the sound of breaking glass. He quickly ran over and saw a cashier chasing and cursing, and the strong man running away with the cash register, while the rat man was on the lookout. But it's really them. Midoriya Izuku was speechless, then started chasing after them. Big score, big bro. Coming to this city was the right choice. That's right, little bro. We got caught by that kid twice, making our power rat duo a joke. The strong man and the rat man, who were running away with the cash register, were repeat offenders. Their crimes were minor, so they were usually only locked up for a few days. The strong man's strength quirk was used to grab goods, while the rat man's rat quirk was used for sensing and scouting. The city's professional heroes hadn't caught them last time because the rat man scouted ahead and they escaped early. They were seasoned criminals. Boss, it seems like someone is chasing us? The rat man heard footsteps behind them, and the strong man stopped and looked back. I think it's that pesky kid. Run! With just one sentence, the strong man sped up and ran away. The rat man looked back and got so scared that he ran even faster than the strong man. Why is it this kid again? We even changed cities and he still found us. The strong man ran desperately while complaining, and the rat man couldn't even speak. If they got caught now, they would end up in jail again. Still trying to run? Even though the 2 thieves sped up, making it hard for Midoriya Izuku to catch up, he didn't need to. He raised his right hand and activated the Reaper gloves, shooting out steel wires. The steel wires hit and wrapped around the legs of the strong man and the rat man. As they were running, their feet stopped, and they fell forward, hitting the ground hard. The strong man, wrapped in steel wires, didn't bother to resist. Last time he tried, he ended up hanging from a lamppost. He complained to Midoriya. "Why is it you again, steel wire death god? We even moved to another city, and you still found us. It's not easy for us to make a living. Why don't you just get a job? Why do you have to rob supermarkets and cause trouble for others? Working is impossible, not in this lifetime. We don't have any other skills, so robbing cash registers is the only way to make a living." The strong man said, and the rat man agreed. Going to jail feels like going home. It feels better than being at home. The guys in there are all talented and they talk nicely. We love it in there. Midoriya Izuku was speechless. What kind of people were these? They were complete social trash. He didn't want to talk to these two thieves anymore and planned to tie them up and call the police. There was a lamppost by the road, and Midoriya Izuku habitually wanted to hang them upside down but stopped. Trouble. Midoriya remembered that his Reaper gloves were filled with special steel wires, which were limited and couldn't be wasted. Izuku was conflicted. If he took these two thieves to the police, what if the police asked him to give a statement? He was using a disguise and couldn't reveal his real name. "I am here." With a drawn-out voice, a burly blonde hero fell from the sky in front of Midoriya Izuku, leaving him stunned. All Might? The person who fell from the sky and stood in front of Midoriya Izuku was the #1 hero, his idol, All Might. "I heard there were two small-time thieves causing trouble nearby. It looks like you've caught them, Akaya boy." "What? All Might came to catch them too? These small-time thieves actually made you come personally." A hero helps others no matter the situation. As All Might said this with his iconic smile, Midoriya Izuku quickly memorized the words to write them down in his All Might quotes later. "Since you've caught the thieves, do you need me to take them to the police station?" "What?" All Might's offer surprised Midoriya Izuku. The #1 hero was willing to help him with this. "After all, it was my mistake that the sludge enemy escaped yesterday. I'm really grateful for your help, Akaya." All Might scratched his head, feeling a bit embarrassed, while Midoriya Izuku quickly waved his hand to deny it. "No way, All Might, you saved me from the sludge. If it weren't for you, I'd be done for. Then let this be my way of repaying you," All Might said as he easily lifted the two thieves onto his shoulders and continued. "And Akaya, you left as soon as you saw the reporters yesterday. It seemed like you didn't want your information exposed, so going to the police station isn't suitable. Leave it to me." All Might. Midoriya Izuku was so moved he couldn't speak. What could be more touching than having his idol understand his situation and be willing to help him? "By the way, Akaya?" All Might turned back as he was about to leave and asked, "Are you planning to apply to UA High School?" "Huh?" Midoriya was stunned. He didn't understand why All Might was asking this. "Because I'll soon be a teacher at UA High School." "What?" Seeing All Might giving him a thumbs up, Midoriya Izuku was completely shocked and speechless. "If you're coming to UA, I'll be waiting for you." Leaving these words, All Might leaped into the air and flew away, leaving Midoriya standing there, lost in thought. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my Patreon.com Gmedman. Zero comment. Chapter 20. Chapter 20. A Plan. Midoriya Izuku really wanted to apply to the hero course at UA High School. After All Might told him he would be a teacher at UA High School, Midoriya was completely stunned. Not long after, the news reported that All Might would be teaching the hero course at UA High School. But when Midoriya looked up information about UA High School, he found that only the elite students who stood out in the entrance exam could join the hero course, the class personally taught by All Might. So envious. Midoriya Izuku said he was envious, but in reality he was dying of envy. However, the hero course at UA High School was a challenge for him. It had been mentioned many times that to take the entrance exam for the hero course at UA High School, besides talent, the essential thing needed was a quirk. Even though Midoriya Izuku could now defeat enemies with his equipment, it couldn't be denied that he was still quirkless. It was like the door to the hero course at UA High School was completely blocked for him. During this time, Midoriya looked up a lot of information about UA High School and found no precedent for a quirkless student joining the hero course. But UA Sports Festival. This term caught Midoriya's eye. According to the information online, the UA Sports Festival was a major event not only in Japan but also worldwide. UA High School would consider outstanding students from the festival for the hero course. Maybe this could work. Midoriya silently planned in his heart. He would do everything he could to get into the hero course. All Might's personal teaching. Just thinking about it filled Midoriya with immense motivation. There's still 10 months left. Now in his third year of middle school, Midoriya had 10 months until he graduated and moved up to high school. He couldn't afford to stop during this time. So, this is why you put all these bags and stuff in my house? Please, Hatsume. Midoriya Izuku clasped his hands and bowed to the genius inventor girl, asking her to store his various tools from his secret base at the seaside park. My house is too small, and if I bring even a little bit home, my mom will find out. Midoriya pointed to the pile of instruments and machines, which were his valuable possessions accumulated over a long time. If he had to throw them away, it would break his heart. At Hatsume's house, because of her exceptional invention talent and wealthy family, her parents had set up a workshop for her. Isn't your base fine? Why move all this stuff to my place? Although she didn't mind helping Midoriya, Hatsume didn't understand what he was up to. Because I won't need these for a while. I've decided to take the UA High School Hero Course exam. Are you crazy? Hatsume retorted sharply. She knew the UA High School exam system well. Not to mention the quirk required for the hero course, the exam didn't allow any equipment or tools, which meant Midoriya Izuku wanted to compete with other students who had quirks, relying only on his somewhat strong body. It's okay. Even if I know I'll fail, I can't become a hero if I don't try. Holding on to a half-hearted belief will never make me a hero. Because a hero is someone who can overcome difficulties. Midoriya spoke with conviction, clenching his fist, though the words were originally from All Might. I really admire you. Hatsume held her head in frustration. The Midoriya Izuku she knew was still the same, willing to try even if it seemed hopeless. Only a fool would do that. Anyway, the UA High School Support Course, Business Course, and Hero Course exams are all different, and there's no rule that students can only take one. Midoriya said confidently. He had a backup plan. If he failed the hero course, he would go for the support course. At UA High School, he could still see All Might even if he couldn't attend his classes. That may be true, but have you thought about how to pass the support course exam? With this. As Midoriya spoke, he took out a round ball from his bag and showed it to Hatsume. On the surface of the ball, there was a large skull symbol, warning of its danger. The homemade bomb. I used it when fighting the butcher. It's incredibly effective. You mean the one that makes your nose run and eyes water just by smelling it, and if it touches your mouth, it makes you vomit stomach acid, the super biochemical weapon. It's the homemade bomb, and it has nothing to do with dangerous biochemical weapons. I don't think so. Hatsume's mouth twitched. She had seen Midoriya get hit by his own bomb, and it was a terrible sight. Alright, you passed the support course. Hatsume acknowledged Midoriya Izuku's work. In the support course at UA High School, unlike other subjects, as long as the students could present their equipment or tools to the UA examiners, and if the creativity, effectiveness, and portability were good enough, they would pass the support course exam. The homemade bomb, a super destructive weapon created by Midoriya Izuku, was something Hatsume couldn't match in terms of cruelty. In the field of mechanical and device invention, Hatsume had outstanding talent, as seen from the Reaper gloves she made. As for Midoriya Izuku, Hatsume's evaluation of him was a genius at making portable tools. The steel anchor and homemade bomb attachments for the Reaper gloves were all developed by Midoriya Izuku himself. Because he wanted to become a hero, Midoriya's research focus was always on how to enhance his combat power. So what are you going to do next? Midoriya had packed all his belongings and moved them to Hatsume's house. Seeing his determined look, the inventor girl had no idea what Midoriya was planning. Since the hero course exam doesn't allow any items, I need to train my body and combat skills. Determined to take the hero course exam, Midoriya Izuku planned to undergo 10 months of intense training to make himself stronger. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 21. Chapter 21. Bajiquin. What to do in the next 10 months. This was Midoriya Izuku's main concern. The hero course exam at UA High School included not only a written test but also a combat test, and this combat test didn't allow any items. The students had to rely solely on their quirk. What should I do? This was the question Midoriya was pondering. Without equipment and tools, his only advantage was his physical fitness. So the only path was clear. Martial arts. The fighting techniques passed down from China were popular and impressive in this superhuman society. Although Japan had similar fighting techniques like karate, they couldn't adapt to the diverse quirks in this superhuman society and had become obsolete. For example, the sludge enemy Midoriya encountered a few days ago had a fluid body. Simple grappling, throwing, and wrestling techniques were basically suicidal. In contrast, fighting techniques with strong explosive power and lethality were what people pursued now. With this in mind, Midoriya Izuku's goal was clear. His physical fitness, which he had trained since childhood, was already at its peak. What he lacked was the fighting techniques to fully utilize his strength. Let's do it. Midoriya nodded, confirming his next steps. Back home, he mentioned this to his mom, Midoriya Inko. He couldn't hide this from her, and there was no need to. What, you want to learn martial arts, Deku? Because after this semester, I'll be moving up to high school. I want to try applying to UA High School. While eating, Midoriya told his mom about his longing to learn martial arts. But won't this be too hard for you? Midoriya Inko was worried about her child. He didn't spend much time with friends and focused solely on studying, always getting perfect scores in exams. While this made her proud, it also made her sad. Midoriya Inko also knew that her child secretly did physical training, which made her worry that Izuku's body might not handle it. Don't worry, Mom. I'll make more friends and play with them during this time. All right. Midoriya Inko reluctantly agreed because she knew her child had few friends. Even Bakugo Katsuki, who grew up with him, didn't play with Izuku anymore. And so, Midoriya Izuku's journey to learn martial arts began. He had only 10 months to MSTR at least one useful technique. Is it here? Taking the subway to a neighboring city, Midoriya followed the map to his destination. In front of him was an old-fashioned house with a large plaque above the door, with 2 bold characters, Bajiquin. Bajiquin, the martial art Midoriya Izuku wanted to learn, was highly regarded in Japan. He found information about it online. There was a well-known Bajiquin dojo in Japan, not far from Midoriya City. It took him about an hour by subway to get there. After confirming the location, Midoriya Izuku was about to step inside when a hand suddenly rested on his shoulder. Are you here to learn Bajiquin? Huh. Midoriya turned around in surprise. It was a boy with short yellow hair, about his age, with a sunny smile, wearing a white training uniform and a big, fleshy tail behind him. Sorry, I'm Ojiro Mashireo, a student at the Bajiquin dojo and the MSDR's son. Oh. Surprised, Midoriya Izuku introduced himself to Ojiro Mashireo. After learning that Midoriya was indeed there to learn Bajiquin, Ojiro Mashireo led him inside. Inside the dojo, Midoriya saw many students in white training uniforms, being strictly instructed by a middle-aged man who looked a bit like Ojiro Mashireo. Mashireo, you're back. Who's this kid? The middle-aged man with a big, fleshy tail saw his son return and asked about Midoriya Izuku. Dad, this is Midoriya Izuku. He wants to learn Bajiquin. Got it. Hearing Ojiro Mashireo's introduction, the Instier nodded in acknowledgement. It wasn't unusual. His Bajiquin dojo was well known in Japan, and many people came to learn Bajiquin. Since we have a new junior, introduce yourself to the senior students. The MS-star loudly instructed Midoriya, making him flustered. He quickly bowed and introduced himself to the students. My name is Midoriya Izuku. Seeing Midoriya's silly introduction, some of the students couldn't help but laugh, but they were quickly silenced by a stern look from the MCR. What are you laughing at? When you first came, some of you couldn't even introduce yourselves properly. Get back to training. With the MSDR's order, the students didn't dare slack off and resumed their training, leaving Midoriya a bit flustered and unsure of what to do. If you want to learn Bajiquin, you need to see what it's all about. Mashireo, take him inside. I'll be there soon. Got it, Dad. Ojiro Mashireo followed the order and led the confused Midoriya Izuku to the dojo's backyard, where various training tools were placed. What caught Midoriya's attention the most was a large steel plate mounted on a stand. Midoriya went closer to look and saw fist marks of varying depths on the steel plate and even 2 large holes. He checked and confirmed that the steel plate was about 5 centimeters thick and real. What's this? Midoriya Izuku asked Ojiro Mashireo in surprise. This is the Bajiquin Dojo's strength testing platform. Students who feel they've made progress can test themselves here. Midoriya Izuku was speechless. A 5 centimeters steel plate. Breaking it without a quirk seemed almost superhuman. Dad, you're here? At Mashireo's call, Midoriya saw the dojo MC arrive in the backyard, wiping his fists. Alright kid, let me show you the power of Bajiquin. Midoriya quickly stepped aside, and the MSTR stood in front of the testing platform. He took a horse stance and focused his energy. With Midoriya watching nervously, Deans unleashed a powerful punch like a tiger pouncing. The steel plate on the testing platform was punched through, leaving a large hole, and Midoriya's jaw dropped in shock. Of course, it wasn't about sheer power. All Might's punch could create a storm, but that was with a quirk. What amazed Midoriya Izuku was that the MSU, like his son, had a tail as their quirk, yet they broke the thick steel plate with just their human body. This strengthened Midoriya's resolve to learn Bajiquin. Now there are 3 holes, huh? Inister laughed for some reason, and Mashireo quickly explained to Midoriya Izuku. One of the holes was made by a senior brother when he graduated recently. Dad has a bit of OCD and was bothered by the irregularity of the 2 holes, so he wanted to add another one to make it look better. By the way, that senior brother's name is Togata Murio. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 22. Chapter 22, Roller Shoes. Amazing! Midoriya Izuku was impressed by the MSDR's Bajiquin skills, which made him even more determined to learn Bajiquin. He needed to MSTR some techniques in the next 10 months. You want to quickly MSTR a skill? The MSTR was a bit displeased after hearing Midoriya Izuku's words. Many young people were too ambitious without understanding the depth. The MSDR's Bajiquin skills had taken decades to reach this level, and his recently graduated senior disciple was also a proud student. But Midoriya's hasty and impatient attitude made the Bajiquin emissary unhappy. Wanting to learn techniques without a solid foundation? Even building a house starts with the foundation. Realizing his words were a bit impulsive, Midoriya Izuku honestly explained his situation to the MSTR. I don't have a quirk. But I really want to be a hero. I want to take the UA High School Hero course exam, but there's only 10 months left. I have to hurry. The MSTR fell silent. He looked at Midoriya Izuku with a different expression, as if he had heard similar words a long time ago. That's right. The MSTR remembered his top student, Togata Murio, saying something similar. I want to be a hero, so I'll do everything I can to work hard. Understanding Midoriya Izuku's determination, the MSTR decided to act quickly. Go change into training clothes. I need to see your foundation. Ojiro Mashireo heard his father's words and quickly took Midoriya Izuku to the changing room. Since they had many students, they had plenty of training clothes. After changing into the same white training uniform, Ojiro led Midoriya to the hall where his father, the MSTR, was waiting. Do you know how to do a horse stance? A little. Midoriya quickly answered the MSDR's question. The MSTR then asked him to do a horse stance, and Midoriya complied. In his usual training, he often practiced the horse stance to strengthen his leg muscles and stability. Lift 2 buckets. Following the MSTR's instructions, Ojiro handed 2 buckets to Midoriya Izuku. He held one in each hand, maintaining a steady horse stance. Your basics are solid. The MSTR was surprised. He looked at the buckets in Midoriya Izuku's hands, and the water surface didn't even ripple. This showed that the boy's physical condition was excellent. Very good. It seems you've been training your body well. Midoriya Izuku's foundation impressed the MSTR. This boy could be a genius in learning Bajikwan. To the sir, a genius meant someone who worked hard. Many students came to the dojo thinking they were geniuses and could master Bajikwan in a month. The MSTR often scolded them for this foolishness. Learning Bajikwan wasn't like doing research. Everyone started with the same physical condition, and the difference was whether they trained their bodies well afterward. Bajikwan's effect was to increase one's strength from 10 to 13, or those whom stred the techniques might reach a level of this meant that if you had weak strength, you might only be able to knock down a dog. But if you had the strength to catch a tiger, learning Bajikwan could allow you to break through thick steel plates. Midoriya Izuku's physical condition was more than adequate, so the MSTR wouldn't refuse his request. So, which Bajikwan technique do you want to learn? The MSTR asked Midoriya Izuku, who had already researched online and immediately answered. Iron Mountain Lean. The Iron Mountain Lean in Bajikwan was known for its powerful single-target damage. Using the shoulder and elbow to strike with full force, it could break lampposts and trees, and even kill someone easily. Are you sure you want to learn this? Ojiro Mashireo was a bit worried, but Midoriya stood firm in his choice. In the entrance exam for the hero course at UA High School, although it changes every year, they don't make students fight each other. Sometimes it's attacking targets, sometimes it's fighting the examiners, but there's one common point. Students with strong attack abilities definitely have an advantage. Midoriya's words were agreed upon by the MSTR and his son, Ojiro Mashireo. Once you have a goal, you must go all out. All right, kid, Midoriya Izuku, right? From now on, you're a new student at my Bajikwan dojo. So, Midoriya Izuku began to work hard on learning Bajikwan over the next 10 months, aiming to MSTR the Iron Mountain Lean technique in the limited time. During his free weekends, Midoriya Izuku would go back to the Bajikwan dojo for training, receiving guidance from the MSTR. On regular days, he would train at his secret base in the seaside park, even though most of his equipment had been sent to Hatsune. But Midoriya's modified fitness equipment was still there, and he had turned an old fridge and truck into his training targets, never forgetting to keep training. During this time, Midoriya Izuku had little contact with Hatsune because he was fully focused on learning Bajikwan, falling behind a bit in his equipment and tools studies. One day, after school, Midoriya received a call from Hatsune, which surprised him. Hatsune rarely called him first. Usually, it was Midoriya asking her for help with making things. Hello, Hatsune, what's up? As soon as Midoriya answered the call, he heard Hatsume's excited voice. Midoriya-chan, I have an idea. Do you want to hear it? What idea? Hearing her tone, Midoriya Izuku knew this genius inventor girl had a new idea and would probably want him to test it. Have you seen Air Gear? No. Midoriya Izuku answered honestly. Since childhood, he had focused on becoming a hero and rarely paid attention to manga or anime. I thought so. What I mean is, have you thought about how you'll fight when you get to UA High School? Midoriya was about to answer with steel wires when he got stuck. This was a problem because he used steel wires under his disguise as Akaya Kain. Not to mention All Might, even Bakugo was applying to UA High School. With his level, he would definitely get in. If he found out Midoriya's true identity as Akaya Kain, he would feel tricked and definitely go after Midoriya. So, I have a new idea, Midoriya-chan. Have you thought about trying roller shoes? Roller shoes? Midoriya Izuku didn't quite understand, so he went home and watched the Air Gear anime. His mom, Midoriya Inko, was very pleased to see her child acting more normal. Hatsune, can you make them? After finishing Air Gear, Midoriya Izuku immediately contacted Hatsune. Seeing the effects in the anime, he thought using roller shoes as new equipment would not only greatly improve his mobility but also keep his Akaya Kain disguise. Although I can't make them as exaggerated as in the anime, I can make the basic functions. Hearing the genius inventor girl's response, Midoriya was truly grateful. Without Hatsume's help, he might still be daydreaming about becoming a hero. Hatsume, you're a genius? Hee hee, I'm a genius after all. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. Midoriya Izuku's Daily Life. Midoriya Izuku's daily life involves studying hard at school and, after school, going to his secret base at the seaside park to practice the basics of Bajikwan, especially focusing on the Iron Mountain Lean technique. He uses communication devices to practice with Hatsume, the genius girl who supports his technology, to check on the progress of her equipment development and exchange research experiences. Finally, he practices the operation of the Reaper gloves daily. This is a typical day, but on weekends, Midoriya Izuku takes the subway to the dojo, where he has officially become a student of the Bajikwan dojo. Every week, he receives guidance from the MSTR and shows his weekly training results for feedback and correction. However, this is just a normal weekend routine. Occasionally, Izuku also engages in personal activities. He dyes his hair black, changes his hairstyle, puts on black casual clothes, and wraps a scarf around his face. The steel wire death god, Akaya Yunhai, is on the move. Let's see. In a neighboring city, Midoriya Izuku checks his phone. According to online information, this city often has wallet thefts, rumored to be the work of a theft gang. Because it's a group crime, they are well informed and hide at the slightest sign of trouble. This makes it difficult for pro heroes to catch them. Nowadays, heroes are well-known figures, making it hard to hide their identities. The theft gang's crime is stealing, a minor offense that's hard to catch. Enthusiastic pro heroes have tried to outsmart the gang several times but failed and gave up. Most pro heroes today are in it for the money, and catching a theft gang doesn't bring much benefit. Who would bother with troublesome thieves? Pro heroes didn't take action, and the police were even less likely to intervene. The police often deal with all sorts of people and know that catching them means they'll be released soon, so they don't bother. Over time, the theft gang became a well-known gray area in the city. Many online warnings advised visitors to guard their wallets. Midoriya Izuku's goal in coming here was to catch the theft gang. Do not do evil because it is a small evil. Do not leave good undone because it is a small good. He heard this saying from Mr. Ojiro, who used it to teach his disciples about their attitude in life. Deeply remembering this saying, Midoriya Izuku combined it with All Might's advice to avoid dangerous actions. So, let's do what I can. Within the range of ensuring his safety, Midoriya thought about helping others. After arriving in the city, Midoriya checked the map and, combining it with online information, went to a large department store. This store was a place where local residents shopped for groceries, always crowded, giving thieves opportunities. When pro heroes came here, the thieves wouldn't act and pretended to be ordinary people. Disguised as an ordinary middle school student, Midoriya Izuku didn't stand out. He let his wallet show a bit, using himself as bait, and walked through the crowd, seemingly unguarded. Sure enough, while Midoriya was carefully observing, a skinny man approached him and tried to reach for Midoriya Izuku's wallet. Midoriya didn't move at all. He just watched as the skinny man grabbed his wallet and tried to pull it away. However, the wallet stopped halfway, surprising the skinny man. Under Midoriya Izuku's sly gaze, the wallet was connected to a steel wire attached to his pocket, something Midoriya had prepared in advance. This scene caught the attention of the surrounding crowd, who quickly moved away from Midoriya Izuku, creating a large open space around him and the skinny man. Kid, are you looking for trouble? Unexpectedly, the thief didn't run away after failing to steal but instead threatened Midoriya Izuku arrogantly. At the same time, a few rough-looking men emerged from the crowd, clearly part of the same group. Just as I thought. A bunch of bullies. Midoriya wasn't surprised. He had already read about the local theft gangs online. When professional heroes were around, they behaved themselves. If they failed and the target looked tough, they would run away immediately. But for someone like Midoriya Izuku, who seemed harmless, they would just rob him directly. This was the nasty tactic of the local theft gang. Although he didn't know what quirks these enemies had, Midoriya figured they couldn't be too strong if they were thieves. He decided to strike first. The steel wire from his right-hand Reaper gloves shot out, wrapping around the skinny man in front of him. Midoriya Izuku then pulled him and threw him at another man who was approaching. The two men collided and fell to the ground, while the others were stunned. Not good. It's the steel wire death god, run. One of the thieves shouted as he tried to escape, but the steel wire from Midoriya wrapped around him, and he used him as a weapon to knock down another man. The other thieves ran even faster. They didn't dare to mess with this steel wire death god. The news about the butcher who was turned into a human stick was a clear warning. They didn't want to end up like that. But their hopes were in vain. No matter how fast their legs were, they couldn't outrun the steel wire. Midoriya Izuku used his Spider-Man capture technique to pull the fleeing thieves back, wrapping them up with the steel wire. Midoriya dragged the thieves to a nearby lamp post, wrapped the steel wire around them several times, and secured them tightly. He then used the Reaper gloves to cut the wire. This time he was prepared. His right-hand Reaper gloves were filled with new steel wire, while his left-hand equipment still used the old wire, making it easier to capture and bind enemies. As the surrounding crowd applauded and praised the young hero, Midoriya Izuku didn't stay long. He quickly ran away, knowing it wasn't the time to become famous. As for the thieves, the enthusiastic crowd would notify the police to take them back to the station, so Midoriya Izuku didn't have to worry about them. As Midoriya quickly ran away, a boy who looked like a middle school student with purple seaweed-like hair and a triangular face silently followed him. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 24. Chapter 24, Shinso Hitoshi. After running a few blocks from the department store, Midoriya Izuku slowed down and deliberately walked into an alley. The boy with the triangular face and seaweed hair quickly followed to avoid losing him. However, when the follower entered the alley, it was empty. Just as he was puzzled, he heard Midoriya's voice from above. "Who are you, and why are you following me?" Using steel wires to hang from the edge, Midoriya Izuku lifted himself off the ground and caught the follower. Although the follower was careful, Midoriya had trained his senses and noticed someone was following him. "You're the steel wire death god, right? I'm just curious about you." The boy with the triangular face admitted his intentions after being caught. Midoriya extended the steel wires and lowered himself back to the ground. "Sorry. My personal privacy can't be revealed to outsiders." Midoriya wasn't surprised. Since gaining fame, he was often recognized even in disguise, and curious people frequently tried to uncover his true identity, which he feared the most. Apologizing to the curious boy, Midoriya walked away without looking back. "Is that so?" The boy with the triangular face lowered his head, a sly smile appearing on his lips, and said slowly, "I'm sorry." Quirk activated. Midoriya Izuku suddenly froze, feeling his mind go blank. His body stood still like a robot without commands. What a hassle, I didn't want to use this annoying quirk. The boy with the triangular face, named Shinso Hitoshi, had a quirk called brainwashing. It allowed him to control others through speech. When Shinso Hitoshi spoke to someone, if they responded, they would be immediately controlled by brainwashing. It was a very powerful quirk. The phrase, "speak and lose," perfectly described its strength. In a fight against Shinso Hitoshi, speaking meant losing. Despite its powerful effect, Shinso Hitoshi disliked his quirk. Evil, sneaky bet. These were the labels classmates and friends gave Shinso Hitoshi because of his quirk. Ordinary people avoided him, while shady characters encouraged him to use his quirk for bad deeds. Worry, sadness, helplessness. These negative emotions plagued Shinso Hitoshi. In this superhuman society, people's dreams were to become heroes. Shinso's dream was also to be a hero, but his brainwashing quirk seemed to label him as a born villain. He envied others' quirks, even ordinary ones, because at least they weren't looked at with suspicion. Steel wire death god. a famous figure who appeared in the past year, is just a middle school student but has repeatedly defeated strong enemies and often caught petty thieves, greatly improving local security. These actions have earned Steel Wire Death God high praise online. Shinso Hitoshi was naturally very interested in the recently famous Steel Wire Death God, and since he happened to encounter him today, he didn't want to miss the chance. He followed him from behind. And so, Midoriya Izuku was controlled by Shinso Hitoshi's brainwashing quirk. "What's your name?" Shinso Hitoshi asked, without any ill intent, just wanting to know the name and quirk of the Steel Wire Death God, to satisfy his curiosity. "Midoriya Izuku." With his mind blank, Midoriya answered Shinso Hitoshi's question, revealing his real name, as it was impossible to hide under the brainwashing quirk. "I thought it would be a cooler name." Shinso awkwardly scratched the back of his head. Using his quirk to pry into someone's privacy without permission was indeed unethical, but if he wasn't caught, it wasn't a crime, right? Then Shinso got to the point. He was most interested in the Steel Wire Death God's quirk, so he asked directly, "What's your quirk?" Still with blank eyes, Midoriya Izuku honestly revealed his secret. "I don't have a quirk." "What?" Shinso Hitoshi was shocked, and his intense emotion accidentally broke the brainwashing, causing Midoriya Izuku to snap back to reality. "What is this?" With a cold expression, Midoriya shot steel wires from his gloves, tightly wrapping Shinso Hitoshi, and sternly questioned him. "What did you do to me just now?" It's worth mentioning that people brainwashed by Shinso Hitoshi wouldn't remember what happened during the process but would have a clear memory gap. Midoriya Izuku immediately realized that the guy with the slanted eyes had done something to him. Sorry. I'm really sorry." Caught red-handed, Shinso Hitoshi was like a kid who had caused big trouble, nervously explaining himself, and Midoriya Izuku listened to the whole situation. Sitting on a public bench in the park, Midoriya Izuku had a look of despair. He had kept his secret even from All Might, but now it was completely exposed to a stranger. "Sorry." With a face full of guilt, Shinso Hitoshi handed Midoriya a soda he bought from a vending machine as a small apology. Midoriya took the soda from Shinso's hand without thinking, his expression unchanged, but inside he was falling apart. "I know you don't have a quirk. But how do you fight?" Shinso asked what was on his mind, and Midoriya, realizing his secret was out, didn't mind. He handed the gloves to the boy in front of him. "These are equipment I asked a friend to make for me. Thanks to her help, I have what I have now." Midoriya gave all the credit to Hatsune Mei, but Shinso Hitoshi wasn't focused on the equipment. He directly asked Midoriya, "Then why do you fight enemies? Isn't it dangerous to do this without a quirk?" Shinso Hitoshi's question hit the mark. Midoriya was silent for a moment, then spoke his mind. "I know it's dangerous. But my dream is still to be a hero." Shinso opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. Midoriya's words cleared the confusion in his heart. In front of him was Midoriya Izuku, who didn't have a quirk but had the dream of becoming a hero and was working hard towards that goal. Shinso felt ashamed of his own thoughts. Even though he had a powerful quirk like brainwashing, far ahead of ordinary people, he doubted himself because of others' opinions. How foolish! Shinso couldn't help but put himself in Midoriya Izuku's shoes. As someone without a quirk, Midoriya had worked so hard to reach this point, making Shinso feel inferior. "I still don't know your name." Midoriya called out to the boy with the triangular face, looking at him curiously. He didn't know what quirk this person had, and he had unknowingly revealed everything to him. "Me." Hearing Midoriya Izuku ask his name, Shinso Hitoshi snapped out of it. After thinking for a moment, he seriously introduced himself. "My name is Shinso Hitoshi. My quirk is brainwashing. It sounds a bit evil, but my dream is to be a hero." You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 25. Chapter 25. Passage. After talking, Midoriya Izuku and Shinso Hitoshi got to know each other better and exchanged contact information, becoming friends. Brainwashing. I didn't know there was such a quirk. Midoriya was amazed. He knew a lot about quirks, and mental control quirks were very rare and powerful. Most had strict activation conditions, but Shinso's, which could control others just by speaking, was extremely rare. Through talking with Shinso, Midoriya learned that there were people like him in society. Because Shinso's quirk was too scary, he was labeled as evil, which Midoriya deeply understood. He was the same. Because he didn't have a quirk, people thought he couldn't be a hero. Midoriya might have been sad and hopeless as a child, but hope comes when you defeat the enemy called despair. All Might's quote, inspiring words, exclusively owned by Midoriya Izuku. Relying on his efforts to overcome the despair of being quirkless, the hope of becoming a hero appeared before Midoriya. At this moment, Midoriya was already on the subway back to his city. Although his identity was exposed during this action, he made a good friend in the process. Midoriya-chan, you mean you were exposed? Yes, I was controlled by Shinso Hitoshi's brainwashing, but he's a good person. He promised to keep my secret, so I made a friend. Midoriya Izuku's identity as the Steel Wire Death God being discovered was a big deal. After returning home, he contacted Hatsum Mei and told her what happened. Good thing he's a nice person. Midoriya-chan, you need to be more careful. What if someone with bad intentions tricks you again? Hatsum Mei warned Midoriya like a worried mom, making him feel a bit embarrassed since he was doing dangerous things. After exchanging information, Hatsum Mei suddenly remembered something and mentioned, Midoriya-chan, did you watch the news today? No, why? The inventor girl's sudden question puzzled Midoriya. Did something special happen? He was more surprised that Hatsum Mei watched the news, as she usually spent her free time on inventions and didn't waste time on news. I heard it from my dad during dinner. Today, when All Might went out to catch criminals, he had a newcomer with him. It seems All Might didn't make a move, and the newcomer defeated all the criminals. What? Midoriya Izuku was shocked. All Might taking a newcomer on a mission was big news. He quickly checked today's news on his phone, and sure enough, All Might's news was on the headlines. Midoriya Izuku carefully read the news. The newcomer was a second-year hero course student at UA High School, currently interning at Sir Nitai's agency. This brings up an important point. At UA High School, first-year students generally learn hero skills and experience at school. Second-year students further develop their quirk abilities and overall strength. Third-year students can intern at hero agencies for long-term practice. However, students from all 3 years can intern at hero agencies as long as they pass the Provisional Hero License exam. The difference is just the balance between school learning and agency time. Sir Nitai's agency? Midoriya knew all about All Might's information. This agency should be run by All Might's former sidekick, the pro hero Sir Nitai. In the past, All Might had a sidekick, Sir Nitai. They worked together for a long time, but for some reason, a few years ago, All Might and his sidekick Sir Nitai suddenly parted ways. Now, All Might works alone as a hero, while Sir Nitai runs a hero agency. Midoriya still felt it was a pity. Although he didn't know what happened between them, they solved many big crises together. However, it now seemed that All Might and his sidekick had reconciled. The news also mentioned this, as the newcomer All Might brought was an intern from Sir Nitai's agency. While Midoriya Izuku was happy that All Might and Sir Nitai had made up, he also felt a strange sensation. The news report was very detailed. All Might just watched as the newcomer defeated all the criminals, praised and encouraged the newcomer, and then did interviews with the reporters after the event was resolved. Midoriya instinctively felt that All Might deliberately brought this newcomer along to quickly make him famous, as if he was grooming his successor. Isn't All Might going to be a teacher at UA? He probably wants a great hero to take over after him, right? Midoriya nodded confidently. After all Might had been a hero for many years, so it wasn't surprising that he was thinking about a successor now. In the end, Midoriya learned the newcomer's name from the news. Togata Murio. Togata Murio? If Midoriya remembered correctly, this should be the senior who recently graduated from the Bajiquan dojo he joined. So, they are the same person? Midoriya was a bit surprised. He knew that the senior who graduated before he met him had the same strength as the emissary and could punch through a 5 centimeters steel plate with Bajiquin alone. But working with all might, I'm so jealous. This time, Midoriya Izuku was truly envious. He dreamed of becoming a hero and going on missions with all might, which was his lifelong wish. So I have to work even harder. Once I get into UA, I can meet all might. Midoriya Izuku encouraged himself. He had shed countless drops of sweat for this goal. On another weekend, Midoriya Izuku took the subway to the Bajiquin dojo. He now went there every week, as he couldn't slack off on his Bajiquin practice. The UA entrance exam was approaching. Midoriya, you're here? As soon as he entered the dojo, he saw the MSDR's son, Ojiro Mashireo, practicing with another student. They stopped their sparring when they saw Midoriya arrive. You're just in time. My dad invited someone unexpected today who wants to meet you. Huh. Midoriya Izuku was a bit surprised. Why would the person the MSTR invited want to see him? Without thinking much, Midoriya followed Ojiro Mashireo to the back of the dojo, where the MSTR usually receive guests. When he got inside, Midoriya saw someone he didn't expect, someone he had just seen in the news. Hello, I'm Togata Murio. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 26. Chapter 26. Murio. Hello, I'm Togata Murio. A sunny smile greeted Midoriya as he arrived, introducing himself warmly. The one interning with all might. Midoriya Izuku blurted out in surprise. Togata Murio didn't deny it but corrected him, I'm also your senior. Sorry. Midoriya Izuku bowed, feeling a bit embarrassed by his impulsive words. It's okay, I don't mind. After calming down, Midoriya asked the sir, who was watching with a smile, why Togata Murio wanted to see him. Because Murio was on the news recently, I thought he finally achieved his dream. So, while congratulating him, I mentioned that we recently had a new junior without a quirk, who reminded me of him. The smiling Mr. Ojiro had seen Togata Murio train in Bajiquin for a long time. He witnessed the boy's hard work and now, seeing him work with all might, it seemed he had achieved his dream. Am I similar to Murio? Midoriya asked with some confusion. He only knew about Murio from recent news and didn't have much detailed information. I still remember when Murio first came to me. Ojiro, the sir, recalled. He said he wanted to be a hero who brings smiles to others, so he needed to work hard to become stronger. Ojiro, the MSTR, didn't hold back in revealing his disciple's past. Murio, standing nearby with a smile, didn't mind at all. He had been working hard to become a hero. I heard about a Quirkless junior who wanted to become a hero, so I came. With both thumbs up, Murio pointed at himself while praising Midoriya Izuku. As a senior, I must recognize and support my junior's efforts. At this moment, Ojiro the sir got up to leave, pulling his son, Mashireo, who was eavesdropping, along with him. You two can talk slowly. There are still some naughty students outside who need guidance. After the Mr. left, Murio warmly pulled Midoriya Izuku to sit in the MSDR's seat, inviting him to chat. Can I call you Midoriya? You don't need to be so formal. Just call me Murio. Murio-senpai. Just call me Murio. Murio told Midoriya not to be so formal. He was a casual person and didn't need respectful titles. So, Murio, what's it like working with All Might? Midoriya Izuku, eyes sparkling, asked Murio directly. This was his dream. The feeling, with All Might around, the pressure is huge. I almost messed up. Murio felt a bit embarrassed. His quirk was special and required a calm mind to work properly. The pressure almost made him fail. Indeed. Midoriya imagined himself in Murio's situation. Having his idol watching him would be incredibly stressful, like taking a high-stakes exam. But it was amazing. Working with All Might felt like a dream come true. Murio said happily, while Midoriya was even more envious. He also wanted to fight crime with All Might. So, you can do it too. Work hard to become a hero, and you can team up with All Might. Yes. With Mirio's encouragement, Midoriya Izuku felt more confident. As long as he kept working hard, he would succeed. By the way, Mirio, what's your quirk? Midoriya Izuku was very interested in his senior, who was recognized by All Might. He was even more curious about his quirk. My quirk is permeation. Permeation? Not understanding, Midoriya Izuku watched as Mirio demonstrated his quirk. In Midoriya's eyes, Mirio suddenly fell into the ground, leaving his clothes scattered around. How about that? Mirio's face emerged from the ground, showing his quirk in the simplest way. Wow. Amazing! Permeation, as the name suggests, is the ability to pass through any object. Any attack on Mirio would pass right through him. Actually, permeation is hard to use. Mirio said as he emerged from the ground, putting on his clothes and explaining his quirk to Midoriya. Permeation is usually used in parts. For example, when passing through a wall, I first put one foot through, then my body, and then the other foot. I don't really get it. Midoriya watched as Togata Murio phased through the ground, and what he said didn't seem to match what he saw. It's like this. When I activate permeation all over my body, it feels like falling into a dark abyss. It's really scary. Huh? Seeing Mirio's serious face as he talked about his quirk, Midoriya Izuku didn't expect it to be so frightening. When my whole body permeates, not only do walls and floors pass through me, but even air, light, and sound. So, it's like that. Hearing Togata Murio's explanation, Midoriya Izuku finally understood. Because the effect of permeation is relative, when Mirio passes through everything he can't receive oxygen, images, or sounds. But doesn't that mean all 5 senses are completely blocked? Then how do you fight Mirio-senpai? It's Mirio. Togata Murio corrected Midoriya's grammar mistake and explained the technique he had worked hard to master. By predicting and practicing my quirk a lot, I've made using it as natural as breathing. That's how I can fight enemies. Hearing Togata Murio's words, Midoriya Izuku understood why this senior came to see him. They were indeed very similar. Togata Murio's quirk, permeation, was dangerous and could easily tear him apart if used improperly. But Mirio mastered it through hard work, turning a dangerous quirk into a powerful strength. Midoriya Izuku didn't have a quirk, but he still had the goal of becoming a hero and worked tirelessly towards it. A quirk was just something others had that he didn't. He could make up for it with more effort. Today, Togata Murio came to tell Midoriya one thing. So, Midoriya, your hard work is right, and you can definitely become a hero. Seeing Togata Murio's thumbs up, Midoriya Izuku couldn't hold back his tears. They flowed out, soaking the ground. Midoriya, are you okay? Did my words hurt you? Togata Murio was flustered, wondering if his junior's quirk was related to tears, as they flowed like a faucet. After a while, the floor was wet with tears, and Togata Murio looked helpless. Midoriya wiped his eyes, and the tears finally stopped. No problem, Murio. I will definitely become a hero. Yeah, I'll be waiting for you at UA High School. One was a pioneer who achieved his dream through hard work, and the other was a follower chasing his dream. They met here. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 27. Chapter 27, All Might's Successor. A lot has happened recently. Midoriya Izuku's disguised identity was first discovered by Shinso Hitoshi, and after some interaction, they became good friends. Later, he met Togata Murio, a senior at UA High School, who encouraged and praised Midoriya for his efforts and believed that he could definitely become a hero. After that, Midoriya Izuku's daily life became more stable. Besides his daily training, he now had 2 people he often contacted, Togata Murio and Shinso Hitoshi. After exchanging contact information with Murio, Midoriya could ask him about any problems he encountered with Bajiquin and also learn about his experiences working with All Might. From Togata Murio, he learned that Murio was interning at Sir Nighteye Hero Agency. Now that All Might and Sir Nighteye had reconciled, All Might often took Murio along on his patrols, which greatly increased Murio's fame. Midoriya Izuku was extremely envious and curious, so he asked Togata Murio why All Might and Sir Night Eye had parted ways. "I don't know either. Sir never told me." Midoriya didn't press him further and instead asked more about All Might's daily life. On the other hand, Midoriya Izuku and Shinso Hitoshi's relationship became closer. Since Midoriya's entire secret was exposed to Shinso, there was nothing else to hide, and because of this, he gained a strong partner. Shinso Hitoshi joined the team, helping Midoriya in his disguised identity as the Steel Wire Death God, Akaya Kain, to deal with enemies. As mentioned many times, in this superhuman society, there are many professional heroes, but there are even more people doing bad things. No matter how powerful All Might is, he can't catch all the criminals. Most professional heroes are more focused on making money and becoming famous. There are always gray areas in society where people frequently commit crimes, and Midoriya Izuku's goal is to catch criminals and hand them over to the police within his ability. In the past, Midoriya had to gather information himself, then set out to find the criminals and catch them. Now that Shinso Hitoshi knew about Midoriya's actions, he insisted on helping. After refusing unsuccessfully, Shinso officially joined the team. It's worth mentioning that the brainwashing quirk is incredibly useful. As long as someone responds to Shinso Hitoshi's conversation, the quirk can be activated. Using brainwashing to get information from criminals who wouldn't remember anything afterward, Shinso would then inform Midoriya, and they would act together. With their combined efforts, the theft gang in Shinso Hitoshi City, including all the small thieves and their leader, were all tied up by Midoriya with steel wires and handed over to the police who arrived after receiving the call. The small thieves who had troubled the residents for a long time were all caught. Because there were too many theft complaints usually, the police wouldn't just release them after a few days. They would be sentenced according to the law, so it's unlikely to see them committing crimes again anytime soon. Also, since Shinso Hitoshi joined Midoriya's team, the efficiency of searching and arresting criminals has increased several times. Now, the enemies in nearby cities are terrified of the Steel Wire Death God and don't dare to cause trouble. Midoriya and Shinso's hero activities have been very effective. Recently, the crime rate in their city and nearby cities has dropped significantly. It can be said that their hard work has not been in vain. Midoriya, are you applying for UA Hero course? Yes, even though the chances are slim, I still want to give it a try. On the weekend, with no plans to fight crime, Midoriya Izuku was heading to the Bajikun Dojo, and this time he was accompanied by another person, Shinso Hitoshi. During a recent chat, Midoriya mentioned to Shinso the idea of strengthening his body. Shinso Hitoshi's brainwashing quirk is very powerful. Even the most prepared person could fall for it, but his weakness is also obvious. His body is too weak. With the UA high school exam approaching, Midoriya analyzed past exam cases and found that the UA Hero course uses both written and practical exams. If there are any destructive tasks, it could be game over for him. Midoriya Izuku, who has no quirk, has been training his body from an early age. He wants to MSTR the Iron Mountain Lean technique to have a fighting chance in the exam. Shinso Hitoshi, on the other hand, never focused on physical training because of his brainwashing quirk. So, Midoriya dragged him along to train. Even if it's too late for the exam, learning more is always good for you. Midoriya said this, and Shinso Hitoshi agreed with him. Without his brainwashing quirk, Shinso's combat ability is very weak. When they arrived at the Bajikun Dojo, the Mr. Ojiro was very happy to have a new student. After testing Shinso Hitoshi's physical fitness, he commented, "Start with physical training. Right now, you probably can't even beat a goose." The MSDR's metaphor was vivid, and Shinso felt a bit embarrassed. Meanwhile, Midoriya Izuku and Ojiro Mashireo were laughing quietly. So, the Bajikun Dojo welcomed a new student who started training from scratch, aiming to first gain the strength to beat a goose. "Mirio. I'm still not used to calling you that. How about I call you Mirio-senpai?" In his spare time, Midoriya Izuku contacted Togata Murio. The easygoing million let Midoriya call him by his name, but Midoriya felt it was disrespectful. "That's fine too. Midoriya, you must work hard to get into UA High School. Togata Murio didn't mind the title. He was more concerned about whether his junior could pass the UA High School entrance exam. Murio-senpai, I just want to ask, do you have to have a quirk to get into the hero course? Midoriya's question hit the key point. Togata Murio didn't know how to answer. UA High School is the best hero school in Japan and also All Might's alma mater. Its selection process is extremely strict. Midoriya, are you planning to apply for the hero course? Togata Murio confirmed Midoriya's intention again. Among the various courses at UA High School, the hero course, support course, business course, and general studies, the hero course is the hardest to get into. It is unheard of for someone without a quirk to be admitted to this course. Murio originally thought that Midoriya Izuku would aim for the general studies course when applying to UA High School. As the best hero school, the general studies course is also quite difficult to get into, but compared to the hero course, at least there is a chance of admission. After all, wanting to get into the hero course without a quirk, such a thing has never been heard of. Even though the chances are slim, I don't want to give up. Even if I fail, at least I won't regret it. But don't worry, Murio-senpai, I also applied for other courses. After all, I can't joke around with my future. You're something else. Togata Murio's worries were dispelled by Midoriya's additional words, and Murio couldn't help but think more highly of this junior. Hearing from Mr. Ojiro about a kid without a quirk who wants to become a hero, Togata Murio felt he should do something. Being a hero is not just a glamorous title. When Murio finally met Midoriya, he found that they were very similar to his younger self, both having the dream of becoming a hero to help others. So, he gave Izuku encouragement and support. A hero without a quirk? Sounds pretty good. The smiling Togata Murio hung up the phone, as someone beside him was already calling for him. Standing on the top of a tall building was Togata Murio, and beside him was the #1 hero, All Might. You've got it down well. Night Eye really chose a great successor for me. Oh, I'm not that great, it's all because of your guidance and All Might's approval. No need to be so modest, I expect you to become even stronger than All Might. The next symbol of peace will be you. On top of the tall building, All Might laughed heartily, while Togata Murio, who was embarrassed by the praise, received a message from Night Eye. The target has started moving. Really? Then let's go. Leaping from the tall building, soaring into the sky was All Might, and following him, Togata Murio also gathered his strength and leaped, soaring into the sky right behind All Might. Heroes move out. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 28, Chapter UA High School. 10 months passed quickly. After contacting Shinso, Hatsume, and Murio yesterday, Midoriya Izuku finally faced his entrance exam. Izuku, good luck. Yes, I will definitely get into UA. Midoriya Inko gave her final words of encouragement to her child before he set off, and Midoriya Izuku departed. After taking the subway to UA High School, Midoriya was still captivated by this great hero training school. The UA High School building could be seen from far away, as the entire area belonged to UA, and there were no other tall buildings besides the school buildings. Students heading to the UA High School exam venue were also coming in an endless stream. Despite the school's terrifyingly strict selection process, it couldn't stop the students' burning longing to become heroes. Midoriya, over here. Hearing the call, Midoriya Izuku turned his head and saw Ojiro Mashireo and Shinso Hitoshi. They were also here for the UA High School exam, as Midoriya wasn't the only one who wanted to become a hero. Since they were all students of the Baji Dojo, Shinso and Ojiro knew each other. They happened to meet on the subway and waited for Midoriya Izuku at the UA gate. After the three of them met, they headed towards the UA High School exam venue. Then, Midoriya Izuku encountered an unexpected person at the school gate. Hey Deku? Why are you here? The aggressive Bakugo Katsuki was furious because he felt Midoriya Izuku had deceived him. When they were in the 3rd year of middle school, Midoriya had applied to UA High School. At that time, Bakugo had come to trouble him, but Midoriya had sent him away with the excuse that he was going to the support course. And now, at the UA High School exam venue gate, Midoriya Izuku unfortunately ran into Bakugo Katsuki. By the way, this time it was the exams for the Hero course and General course at UA High School. The exams for the support course and business course were held elsewhere. Kaken. Midoriya was a bit embarrassed. He really didn't expect to run into Bakugo at the UA gate, and now he was at a loss for words. You useless nerd, how dare you lie to me? You brat, you're so arrogant. Bakugo Katsuki thought he had been deceived by Midoriya and was in a state of rage. Shinso Hitoshi, who was annoyed by Bakugo's insults towards Midoriya, directly confronted him. You triangle-eyed villain, are you looking for trouble? Heh. Shinso Hitoshi's characteristic triangular eyes made him look bad, especially when he was unhappy. Shinso hated being called a villain. To mention again, Shinso Hitoshi's quirk is brainwashing, which is triggered by responding to his words. Bakugo Katsuki had completely fulfilled this condition. Shinso was about to use brainwashing to control this loudmouth in front of him. It seemed he was also here for the UA exam? Then let him go home directly. Want to take the UA high school exam? Come back next year, you fool. Shinso, stop. Stop. Midoriya quickly put his hand in front of Shinso Hitoshi, really afraid that Bakugo Katsuki's words would lead to unnecessary tragic consequences. Ojiro Mashireo saw this and quickly went to stop the Bakugo he didn't know yet, to prevent any irreversible consequences. Because it was at the entrance of the UA high school entrance exam, an unexpected dispute attracted a crowd of onlookers. There were people who wanted to fight, people who tried to stop the fight, and people who just watched. The entrance was quickly blocked. Doing this at the UA gate isn't a good idea. A cute girl with a round face and brown hair kindly mentioned to Midoriya and the others that this was the entrance to the UA high school entrance exam. If things got out of hand, they might be disqualified from the exam. Bakugo, who had calmed down a bit, still glared at Midoriya and swaggered into the UA exam hall. Seriously, Midoriya, why didn't you let me teach him a lesson? Shinso Hitoshi, who had grown to dislike Bakugo, would have shown him the consequences of his rude words if it weren't for Midoriya. We're here for the exam, not to fight. If you want to be a hero, you can't get angry over such small things. Midoriya lectured Shinso Hitoshi, reminding him that to be a qualified hero, one must learn to stay calm and control their anger, using it for the right reasons. Yes, Midoriya Izuku was referring to a certain butcher who harmed others. Midoriya usually held back and only restrained the enemy, but if someone crossed his line, they would experience the steel wire death god. Thank you. After the dispute at the gate ended, Midoriya naturally thanked the girl who helped them. If he had said those words to Bakugo himself, it would have only made Bakugo angrier. It's nothing, I just said a few words. The brown-haired girl waved her hand quickly. Seeing Midoriya, Ojiro, and Shinso together, she asked, "Are you three classmates from the same school?" Many students who came to take the UA high school entrance exam were classmates from the same school. It was common for them to form groups for the exam. No, we are students from the same martial arts dojo. The boy who got angry at me earlier, Bakugo, is my classmate. What? The brown-haired girl was surprised, but since it was a personal matter, she didn't ask further. She waved to Midoriya and hurried to the exam hall. Let's go. Midoriya led the way, followed by Shinso and Ojiro. The three of them entered the UA high school exam hall. In the large semicircular hall, the seats were already filled with students taking the exam. Midoriya and the others finally found 3 seats together and waited for the exam to start. Professional hero and UA high school teacher, voice hero, present mic, appeared. Welcome to my concert. His grand entrance speech was met with silence from the students, leaving the voice hero disappointed. But since it was the UA entrance exam, present mic quickly got to the point and announced the exam rules. The key points of the entrance exam are as follows. A 10-minute simulated city street exercise. You can bring any tools you want. All students, please. Before present mic could finish speaking, Midoriya Izuku suddenly shouted in surprise. Everyone else looked at him with strange expressions, and Present Mike stopped explaining the rules to look at Midoriya. Realizing his mistake, Midoriya quickly raised his right hand in the standard way to ask a question. "What's the problem, little green-haired one? Voice Hero, can we really bring any tools for this exam? Weren't the previous exams not allowed to use equipment or tools? It seems we have a well-prepared little one here." Unfortunately, after signaling Midoriya Izuku to sit down, Present Mike explained with a regretful expression. Considering the variety of students' quirks, some need equipment or tools to perform better. So, from this exam onwards, the rule of not using equipment or tools is cancelled. Sigh. Midoriya Izuku looked very disappointed. The other students didn't feel this rule change affected them much, but Shinso Hitoshi, who was beside Midoriya, felt very sorry for him. Midoriya Izuku, also known as Steel Wire Death God, Akaya Kaien, had a huge difference in combat ability with or without equipment. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 29. Chapter Entrance Exam. So unfair. Midoriya Izuku, with a bitter face, found out about the change in the UA High School entrance exam allowing equipment and tools a week ago online. But since it wasn't a big change, it didn't attract much attention, and Izuku was too busy preparing for the exam to keep up with the news. But now, it's too late to go back home to get equipment. Midoriya had prepared for this exam. Present Mike announced the exam rules. Eliminate the robots acting as enemies, using a point system. After knowing the exam project, Shinso Hitoshi also looked very upset. Robots as enemies were useless against his brainwashing quirk. Even though he recently trained at the Bajikwan Dojo, Shinso's actual combat ability was still very limited, which was a pity. Compared to Midoriya and Shinso, Ojiro Mashireo was much more confident. After all, he had been learning martial arts from his father for many years, and with his physical quirk, he was good at hand-to-hand combat. There were several exam venues, and UA randomly assigned students to different venues. This time, Midoriya, Shinso, and Ojiro were unlucky and were assigned to different venues. Riding the bus within UA High School, Midoriya Izuku arrived at his exam venue. So big! Midoriya's mouth twisted a bit. Although he had read a lot of news about UA High School online, seeing it in person made him realize how wealthy the best hero school in Japan was. The so-called simulated street was a large area enclosed by high walls, with streets inside that looked just like those in a city. It was almost as big as the entire campus of the middle school Izuku used to attend. And hearing what Voice Hero, Present Mike said, there were several such large exam venues. At this moment, Midoriya understood just how impressive the best hero school in Japan was. After the candidates got off the bus, some were as shocked by UA's wealth as Izuku, some were nervous about the upcoming exam, and others were full of confidence. What are you daydreaming about? The test has no countdown. Run. Run. When Present Mike suddenly shouted this through the broadcast, all the candidates were stunned. Then they all rushed towards the exam venue. You can't play with people like this. Leading the charge was Midoriya Izuku. His long-term training had made his physical abilities far exceed those of ordinary people. There was also another boy with glasses sprinting ahead, even faster than Midoriya. His quirk seemed to be engine propulsion. After entering the venue, the simulated streets were filled with various types of robots. Midoriya estimated he could do it. Most of the robot enemies were 2 to 3 meters tall, designed with tracks or multiple legs for stability, and used cameras to lock onto people. Without hesitation, Midoriya Izuku charged straight at a robot enemy. Increase speed to boost impact. He silently recited the trick taught by Mr. Ojiro, a move that allowed Midoriya's middle school physique to exert maximum power. Aim for the enemy's weak spot. As he sprinted at high speed, Midoriya targeted the spot where the robot enemy was most likely to attack with full force. With a fierce collision, Midoriya Izuku used the Iron Mountain Lean he had trained for 10 months, crashing into the robot enemy. The robot's armor caved in, and it fell to the ground with parts flying everywhere. Yes. Happy that he successfully defeated the enemy, Midoriya clutched his right arm in pain. After all, it was a collision between flesh and steel, and there was no way to avoid the reaction force. Next one. No time to waste, Midoriya Izuku immediately looked for the next robot enemy target. This was an all-out exam. 10 minutes wasn't long. Midoriya used all his strength and barely managed to defeat a few enemies. At this moment, Todoroki suddenly caused a commotion that shook the entire simulated street. What's going on? With a look of horror, Midoriya saw a giant robot enemy, tens of meters tall, suddenly appear. The buildings on the street were pushed aside like blocks. Is this the zero-point enemy that the voice hero mentioned? Seeing the giant enemy that toppled buildings like blocks, Midoriya recalled that Present Mike had mentioned 4 types of enemies. This giant robot was clearly the zero-point enemy that hadn't appeared before. He turned around and ran. Fight this monster? No way! Midoriya Izuku was so scared that cold sweat broke out. Even with gloves, he was no match for this giant enemy. Ouch! Hearing a girl's voice behind him, Midoriya looked back and saw the girl with tea-colored hair he had met at the UA gate. It seemed that the giant robot had collapsed a building, and she was trapped under a pile of rubble, with the giant enemy approaching. Without hesitation, and without even thinking, Midoriya Izuku turned and sprinted towards her with all his might. He recalled what Mr. Ojiro had told him. The Iron Mountain Lean could be used to deliver the strongest impact with the whole body or a concentrated attack with the elbow. When the giant mock enemy was about to step on the brown-haired girl, Midoriya got there first and used his Iron Mountain Lean elbow strike. The biggest piece of rubble on the girl was knocked away, and Midoriya grabbed her hand and pulled her out of the rubble. Before the girl could react, Midoriya put her on his back and sprinted away just as the giant mock enemy was about to step on them. He ran far away in one go, and the 10-minute exam time ended. The giant mock enemy also stopped its rampage. What is UA High School doing? This is too dangerous. Breathing heavily, Midoriya was rarely this angry. Even though this was the school he wanted to get into, having such a dangerous exam was really inappropriate. Can you put me down? The brown-haired girl on Midoriya's back blushed. Although she was saved by Midoriya, she felt a bit embarrassed being carried. Oh, sorry. Realizing he still had someone on his back, Midoriya carefully placed the girl on the damaged mock enemy armor, which was smooth enough to sit on. Since the girl was trapped under the rubble earlier, Midoriya didn't know if her foot was injured. Thank you. It's nothing, didn't you help me at the school gate? Even though Midoriya said this, the girl found it hard to speak, and the atmosphere became a bit awkward. My name is Uraraka Ochako. Can you tell me your name? Yes, my name is Midoriya Izuku. After exchanging names, a UA high school teacher, the professional hero, Recovery Girl, arrived. Despite her hero name, she was actually an elderly lady. After the exam, Recovery Girl treated the injured students in the mock street one by one. Her quirk was a type of accelerated healing. After Uraraka Ochako's injured leg was healed, Midoriya Izuku left. He still didn't know how Shinso and Ojiro did in the exam. You can read 10 chapters ahead on my patrayon.com gmedman. Comment. 0 comment. Chapter 30. Chapter 30, Entrance Exam. How did it go? I messed up. Coming out of the UA exam hall, Midoriya Izuku asked Shinso Hitoshi about his situation, and he just had a very depressed look on his face. The result was obvious. Ojiro, how about you? I think I did pretty well. Compared to Shinso's extreme depression, Ojiro was smiling, clearly indicating he did well in the exam. Midoriya, how about you? Although I defeated a few mock enemies, I think it still wasn't enough. Midoriya smiled awkwardly. Compared to other exam students, his performance wasn't outstanding. If the full score was 100, he was probably just at the passing line. Sorry. Both of his companions didn't do well, and Ojiro Mashireo, who did well, felt a bit guilty. It's okay, the results are based on our own efforts. If there's anyone to blame, it's ourselves for not working hard enough. Midoriya said this with a big heart. After all, the result was as he expected, but you always have to try, right? After the UA high school exam, the three of them took the subway home. Now, they just had to wait for the results. Take a look at this student. At UA high school, the teachers reviewing the entrance exam results noticed a particularly outstanding student. They played the video for the other teachers, and the video they were watching was of Midoriya Izuku. His physical abilities are impressive. It seems he defeated the enemy with just his skills. And this kid didn't hesitate at all when saving that girl. He made quick and accurate decisions and saved the girl without any delay. In UA's exam system, rescuing others also earns high rescue points. After all, being a hero is not just about defeating enemies but also saving people from danger. Midoriya's performance earned him a lot of rescue points. From watching Midoriya's video, the teachers all praised this student. If everything checks out, he should be directly promoted to the hero course. This kid's name is Midoriya Izuku, and he's Quirkless? The teacher who was interested in Midoriya's performance pulled up his file, which showed his name and quirk record. Unfortunately, Midoriya Izuku was Quirkless. The teachers who had just praised Midoriya fell silent. It wasn't that they discriminated against quirkless students, but it was very hard for a student without a quirk to become a hero. UA High School's hero course uses a very strict training method. Graduates from the hero course are usually very strong heroes right from the start. Therefore, UA carefully selects students for the hero course. Even though Midoriya performed very well, the teachers, thinking long-term, believed that a quirkless student like Midoriya would have a hard time keeping up with the other hero course students based on physical abilities alone. If they let this kid into the hero course now, it might become a torment for him in the future. This was the unanimous opinion of the UA teachers. Although we feel sorry for this kid, we can only reject him from the hero course. The teachers regretfully announced Midoriya's failure. They couldn't let a quirkless student pursue the harsh dream of becoming a hero, which would only lead to pain and suffering in the end. A week later, Midoriya Izuku received a letter from UA High School, clearly expressing their regret and informing him that he had unfortunately failed the exam. So, it turned out like this. Midoriya sighed but didn't feel disappointed. He had expected this outcome. At the same time, he opened another letter. It was also from UA High School, but this one was an admission letter for the support course. After the hero course exam at UA High School, Midoriya Izuku also took the support course exam, which had a completely different atmosphere. If the hero course entrance exam was a battlefield, the support course entrance exam was a gathering of inventors. Hatsum Mei, who also took the support course exam, brought all her big and small equipment. Of course, Midoriya Izuku was responsible for carrying the heavy stuff. After the support course teachers reviewed the scores, Hatsum Mei passed the exam smoothly. Next was Midoriya Izuku. Then they saw Midoriya carefully take out his homemade bomb improved version and very seriously told the teachers that it was dangerous. The teachers didn't care and threw Midoriya's homemade bomb improved version into the test field. Midoriya quickly grabbed Hatsum Mei and ran away from the support course exam venue. A big cloud of yellow smoke spread out. Anyone who smelled it foamed at the mouth and collapsed, paralyzed. Only Midoriya and Hatsum Mei, who ran out in time, escaped this disaster. What did you make this time? It's a herring-can bomb. It smells so bad it can make people faint, but it won't harm the body. It's a very safe bomb. I'll never trust your safe again. Midoriya had created another super powerful biochemical weapon, and this time it knocked out everyone in the support course exam venue. Luckily, Midoriya's design used a smoke bomb, and the bad smell quickly disappeared. The people in the support course finally got relief. Even though Midoriya caused such a big problem, the support course teachers all said he was talented and must be recruited into the support course. For these invention enthusiasts, as long as your invention interests them, other things are minor. So, after failing the hero course at UA High School, Midoriya Izuku successfully moved to the support course, achieving his initial goal of entering UA High School. Of course, Midoriya was also warned that he must inform the teachers and get approval before inventing any bombs in the future. After receiving the admission notice, Midoriya called Shinso Hitoshi. Shinso, how's it going on your side? I messed up the hero course exam, so I applied for the general course instead. As Midoriya expected, Shinso Hitoshi didn't defeat any robot enemies in the hero course exam. What about Ojiro? He was lucky and got into the hero course. Really? Midoriya was silent for a moment, then couldn't help but laugh, making Shinso on the other end of the phone very confused. Well, we need to work harder and catch up with Ojiro. Yeah. I won't give up so easily. Midoriya's optimistic words cheered up Shinso, who was feeling a bit down. Falling behind now didn't mean he would always be behind others. Let's work hard and show our skills at the UA Sports Festival. The UA Sports Festival was Midoriya Izuku's next goal. Those who performed well at the festival had a chance to move up to the hero course.